Okay guys, let's go ahead and we're on week 10, 27 July, and hopefully your machines are up, and we need to go for now the virtual standard switch. So that would be virtual standard switch. And then we're gonna go for vMotion as well. Alright guys, so let's get going with our virtual standard switch. So I'll just drag this away and grab the slides. Now let me just open that and then we'll continue. So we have talked about virtual standard switch before as well, virtual switch, and first of all, what happens is that the virtual switch has it gets installed. It gets installed when we have when we install the hypervisor. Then the virtual switch gets installed and the data store gets installed on the storage. Virtual switch for networking gets installed as well, right? So I'll just grab a diagram from here. So now what we need to do is, there are slides. Oh yeah, finally you see a face of a slide here, exactly, as well. Otherwise it's normally we're exploring features. Okay, so here what happens is that you got the virtual standard switch.
Arti has joined the meeting.
Oh, okay. So okay, so what we were saying was that virtual standard switch here, and suppose virtual standard switch here as well. So suppose these are VSS or virtual standard switch. Now we have the two important components of that, and that is that they have port groups and they have VM kernel port. So we're gonna have some more labs for these VM kernel ports. We're gonna check that, but excuse me, the purpose of port groups was to connect VMs to each other, and to outside network, internet, right? So that would be the port groups. And then there is VM kernel as well. And VM kernel it introduces all the advanced features of so I'll just put that here. It introduces networking for the advanced features of VMware. For example, vMotion, FT, fault tolerance, that is, and vSAN, and also connectivity, etc. Right? So the virtual standard switch is by default there, and the first virtual standard switch is named vSwitch 0. So you will see a vSwitch 0 always there when you install a hypervisor, right? And then there is let's actually go there and check out all the features of that. So we're going to talk about port groups. We're going to play with those port groups. We're going to create more. What is the purpose other than that of port groups? So let's try to see that in our environment and then discuss more about it and try to understand it more. So administrator at vSphere.local, and then small is equal to shape 123 without shape 123, and it's logging in. So one day, Monday or Sunday, oh, well, today, yeah, it's logging in. So what we need to do here is that we need to click the ESXi01. So this is our one of the hypervisors, one of the two. So once we click that ESXi01, you can see on the top right, well, not the top right, but on the right side, configure here, right? So the ESXi1, you click and then configure, and then you can see that there is storage, and we've gone through that a lot. I'm just going to make this screen bigger so we could see all this. So I'm just going to make that screen bigger. All right. So I'm just going to go down to the networking, and I'm going to click the virtual switches, right? So this is, hopefully you've clicked that. So ESXi01, configure, and virtual switches. Now inside virtual switches, you will see only the default vSwitch 0 there. So vSwitch 0 and virtual switches and vSwitch 0. So in that case, once you see the vSwitch 0, you can see below here the diagram, and that's a very good thing that VMware has shown the configuration of your default virtual switch as a diagram, right? And I wanted to actually place it up, instead it just went down. Okay, so I have selected vSwitch 0, and down here it shows the virtual switch. So this side, the right side of the virtual switch, is actually a physical adapter. So this is the physical side of the virtual switch, where virtual switch is supposed to be connected to a physical network adapter, and the left side is the software side of it, the virtual switch, and it has one port group here called VM network. So the by default, one port group always gets created when a virtual switch gets created, and that port group is by default named as VM dash or VM space network, right? So obviously virtual machines will be connecting to this port group. And when it comes to VM kernel port, so this is one of the advanced features, and that is management network. So this gets created by default as well, and the only purpose of management network VM kernel port is that it helps us connect remotely to this hypervisor. Suppose this management network was not there, so from vCenter, we're just connected from vCenter. This is all vCenter, right? So from vCenter, we could not have connected to the ESXi1 hypervisor remotely, and we could not have connected to ESXi2 hypervisor remotely. So thanks to this management network VM kernel port, that we are remotely connected and managing the hypervisor. Suppose you have 200 hypervisors, 2000 hypervisors. Suppose it's a very big environment. So in that case, because of this VM kernel port management network, it gets installed when you install the first time a hypervisor. And one port group gets installed because whenever you create a virtual machine, it has to connect to at least one port group, any one port group. So this port group will help the virtual machines communicate over the network with each other and to the outside world, right? So this is a typical virtual switch here that has on the right side physical adapter, and on the left side it has one VM kernel port that helps us connect remotely to this hypervisor, and one port group. So any virtual machines in this hypervisor can communicate with each other and to the outside world. So you can see that I can see here actually virtual machine, and the number is 4 for me, right? So Bikram is asking if we are recording that, so I'll double check that. Yes, we're recording, yay. Okay, so we're recording, and okay, here you can see that virtual machines are 4. Now don't worry if you see 3 or 5 or 2. So you should be seeing some number of virtual machines here, because virtual machines will only connect to port group. They will never connect to VM kernel port. VM kernel port is to introduce advanced features and make available the networking side of those advanced features. VM kernel port is not used to connect virtual machines to each other. Port group is used to connect virtual machines with each other. But not only that, that the port group is that you can connect virtual machines to each other. Uh, we can create another port group, which are about to create now. What would be the purpose of that? One port group can be sales department port group. Other port group can be marketing department port group. Then why are we doing that? To organize sales department virtual machines. Suppose these two virtual machines actually belong to sales department, so we could just attach these virtual machines to the sales department port group, and the other two are marketing department virtual machines, so we can connect them to marketing department port group. And what's the benefit of that? So we, first of all, we can organize. So, oh, there are 20 virtual machines, suppose here, or 30 virtual machines here according to the hardware limit of the hypervisor. So suppose 10 of them are actually belonging to sales department, then the marketing department, then the administration department, then HR department. So you may want to create those many port groups there, so you could just separate them together. So first thing is, okay, port groups you can connect, or you can organize them with departments or teams or branches. So it's Toronto branch port group. So it's a New York branch port group. You can do that. So what we'll first do is we'll try to check that can we create more port groups there. Actually, and we can create actually 128 port groups there in a virtual switch, and it can go even up to with latest versions 4096 port groups. So but then obviously it would be a very big environment, but we're just talking about our environment right now. So we're going to create one more port group, or even more, just to check what else does it do. So is it just organization of virtual machines into different port groups, or are there some other features inside the port group, right? So if I go back to the diagram here, so here, if you have a virtual standard switch, then you will have a VM network port group, and the purpose of port group is to connect virtual machines. As we know, each port in a port group connects one virtual machine. How many total ports in a port group? So one port group can take 128 virtual machines. Then you can create another port group if you have that many virtual machines. Normally you will run out of RAM or CPU or SSD if you can go up to 128. They do use some level of RAM there, right? So, but 128 VMs you can have in a typical port group there, right? Okay, so introduce and then VM control port. We understand that one VM control port is there, but in the next lab, vMotion, we're going to introduce one more. Then you're going to see that how to configure a VM kernel port as well. But for now, we know that it will introduce networking for any advanced feature of VMware. So we were talking about port groups. So let's create one more port group there in ESXi01 and check if we can attach or detach our virtual machine from one port group to another port group to understand how we can just organize the port groups into department port groups or branch port groups or teams port groups. Suppose different teams are there. IT team is there, sales team is there. So how to create another port group for virtual machines inside vSearch 0? Let's do that now. And there is that small globe sign and plus sign here, right? Globe sign and plus sign. So we can click here, add host networking on globe and plus sign. And you can see, now this is the wizard that you're going to see a lot. We're going to visit this throughout the course a lot, this wizard. So first of all, it says, oh, you want to create a VM kernel port, VM kernel network adapter. Are you introducing some advanced feature like vMotion or iSCSI or fiber channel over Ethernet, or fault tolerance, or vSAN, or host management. So we're saying no, we're not introducing for now any advanced feature. We're just going for a port group. We need to create a new port group here. So now the next option says physical network adapter. We're not going to add another network adapter yet, but after adding a port group and understanding some more about it, we're going to come back to and we're going to add a second network adapter to this same vSwitch 0, and I will tell you why. So first of all, let's go for creating a new port group here. And for this, we're going to come down to virtual machine port groups for a standard switch. Okay, this seems like it. And then if you've selected the third one, then click next. So once we click next, so it says, hey, you want to create a new switch, standard switch, or you want to just create the port group inside an existing switch. So we have our choice, but we're going to just stick to the existing switch for now, vSwitch 0, right? And let's click next. So now here we can see that you can actually give a name to a port group. So, well, and the naming has to be, meaningful as well. And if I go for, suppose, sales DEPT dash SW0, so it is coming from switch 0, right? Now, main thing to one other rule of thumb we can say, why did I have to put the name of the switch? Why don't I just put the sales department PG, right, port group? But the name of the switch is also there, and that the reason is that virtual machines, as we discussed before as well, suppose there's a virtual machine here. Virtual machine will never see directly a switch. It will never see a switch here, and it will also never see a network card. You cannot directly, when you're connecting a virtual machine to a network, it will only see a port group, PG. So if it can only see a port group, it cannot see a switch, it cannot see a network card. So this means that port group name has to tell that which switch it is connected to. Jagman says which connection type we selected. We selected third one, Jagman, and select the third one and then click next and stay there. Okay, thank you. So here, guys, now port group, virtual machines only sees a port group. It does not see a virtual switch. It does not see a network card. So that's good. Well, that's how VMware designed it. So this means that if it can only see a port group, suppose I put the port group name as PG1, right? Port group 1. And you actually have here, three switches, three standard switches, or four standard switches here, right? So depends on which standard switch you want to connect. So what happens is that suppose PG1 virtual machine sees that I want to connect to the third switch that actually is connected to three separate network cards. Suppose that switch has a lot of network cards connected to that, right? So in that case, there's more bandwidth here. Other switches are connected to two network cards, but this one is three. And this virtual machine actually needs more bandwidth. Suppose it's SQL Server. Suppose that's the whole scenario there is, that it needs to connect to a specific switch that can offer more bandwidth because it is, suppose, connected to 3, 4, 5, 6 network cards, right? But the virtual machine only sees a port group. So the port group has to say that which standard switch it is connected to right now, right? So PG1 SW3. If we actually mention the name of the switch, obviously then we can only know from just the name here that okay, so this port group is connected to switch 3, and virtual machine is supposed to connect to switch 3, right? So otherwise you will have to just investigate further and waste your time. That PG1 here, or sales PG1 here, is actually where it's not in switch 0, it's not in switch, oh, it's on switch 3. Okay, so instead of wasting time, let's put proper naming there, right? So that's the main idea behind why would you put a switch name there, because virtual machines only see a port group, they don't see the switch, or they don't see a network card here, right? Yes, Ibrahim says, can a VM connect to multiple PGs? Yes. So a virtual machine can connect to, suppose there is a PG1, port group 1, that's coming from this switch, and then you create a port group 2. You named it as that as well, and this is connected to the second switch, right? So you can just add, you already have one network card here in 6i1, right? You add a second network card, and first network card is connected to PG1, second network card can be connected to PG2. So this means that the virtual machine is actually connected through the port group to two different switches here, which are connected in turn to two different sets of physical NICs as well. So this is how you can make redundancy possible and NIC teaming possible as well. So yes, one virtual machine can connect to multiple port groups as well. Okay, so we understand that all, and let's just go back here, and sales department, I just forgot to put that PG there. Well, we know it's a port group, but anyway, sales department PG, and it's coming from dash SW0. So later we're going to create multiple switches as well. So then it will be very useful to know that, oh, okay, this port group is actually coming from switch 0 or switch 1 or switch 2. Second thing is that you can offer also VLAN ID, which is 0 or 4095. And many of us would know the purpose of VLAN. So suppose you create one virtual switch, one port group with VLAN suppose 2, and the other virtual switch with VLAN suppose 3. So one port group with VLAN 2, another port group with VLAN 3, right? So the virtual machines connected to the port group having VLAN 2 cannot communicate with the virtual machines connected to the port group having VLAN 3, right? So you want to isolate traffic between the port groups among the port group virtual machines, then you can just define VLAN there as well. Suppose you select this. So now this means that it can communicate with all other port groups. Suppose there's a port group 2 here that is having a VLAN 2, port group 3 here having VLAN 3, port group 4 here, suppose having VLAN 4. So this port group having this selected 4095 will connect to all those VLANs as well, because it includes all the VLANs. Hey, you connect to everyone, right? So these are just some of the scenarios that you can play with. We're going to stick to 0 here for now for the VLAN ID, but we understand that if we put any other number here, then other port groups, virtual machines, won't be able to connect to us. If they're all the same VLAN, they will be connecting. So guys, we're going to stick to sales department PG-switch 0. If you've written that, and this is the selection non-zero, then click next. And that's it, ready to complete. So let's click finito. So the recent task says here it's update network configuration 0%. Okay, so as soon as I said it's just okay now. Otherwise, yeah, I was wondering. So now there is second port group got created here, right? So there is that default port group VM network, and then there is a sales department PG with switch 0 connected. So that's a port group as well. Later, if you have a big environment, obviously you will have to change the default port group name to that which switch it belongs to as well. Now, guys, my default port group has actually 4 virtual machines. In your case, maybe 3, maybe 2, maybe 5, maybe 6, doesn't matter. Whatever number of virtual machines are there, our task is to detach a virtual machine from the default port group to the newly created port group. So how do we do that? We need to understand that suppose that virtual machine actually belongs to a sales department, and we need to detach it from the default port group to the sales department port group and attach it there. So how do we do that? So let's do that now. If you can go to any of the virtual machines on the left side here, I'll go for an empty machine, your first name VM02, or whichever machine you want to select. And first of all, I want to know that which port group it is connected to right now. We know it is connected to default port group, but how do we see that when we connect to the virtual machine? So you select the virtual machine and go to summary. Either you can go to networks, or in summary, it will just tell you everything anyway. So if you click the summary, and there's a VM hardware written here, right? So if you expand that VM hardware, so you can see, yes, so there you go. So it's connected to right now VM network, and we need to change that now. So let's do that. We don't want it to be connected to or stay connected to this default port group. Let's right click on the virtual machine, your first name VM02, and then obviously we always go to edit settings for anything, any changes there, right? So let's go to edit settings. And here there's only one network adapter, and we can see that it is connected to the port group called VM space network. So if we drop down that VM space network, so we see the newly created port group by us. So we can just simply select that, right? But we can also go for show more networks here, just to check that, hey, can we really not see, you know, a port group? Okay, so there's some, oh, okay, Madhuri is not able to see anything, so Madhuri, try to refresh on WhatsApp. She's posted a picture, and so cancel this and go to another virtual machine and right click and edit settings, Madhuri. So try that. Go to, we have 3 or 4 virtual machines here. Try to go for another one. We'll try to concentrate on understanding the concepts, and right, so cancel out, refresh everything, and then try to right click another virtual machine. Otherwise it's just, oh, okay, got it. So guys, here VM network, and we can click the show more networks here. There's a show more networks, right? So if you click the show more networks, this screen opens up. So when I drop down, there was a show more networks there. So I don't see any vSwitch 0 written here as well. And this show more networks just means that suppose you actually have 40 or 50 port groups there for a big environment, so it will show all the port groups that you've created there, right? But it's just port group that the virtual machine sees. So that's what I was saying here, right? So let's cancel out from show more networks here, and now we can just simply change it. So this is very simple. Just, you know, drop down and click the port group that you want the virtual machine to connect to. That port group can be connected to, suppose there was switch 2, and switch 2 has 4 network cards, so now it will have more bandwidth. So there would be a reason always that why would you want to go from one port group to another port group. So this is just about port groups that yes, they are for organization as well, and that's how you can change the port groups of any virtual machines. So I'm just gonna press OK after changing the port group. And well, if I go to networks here, this one on the right click or refresh. Okay, I'll refresh first. So now it should be, yes, this is a different port group now. Or you can go to networks here as well. So it changed here anyway, but in the networks also you will see the same thing. It's this port group now. So again,
Please repeat.
so here right click on the virtual machine and then go to edit settings, and then in edit settings drop down. When you see a network adapter in the edit settings, just drop down this one and select your port group and press OK. Alright, so Brahim is asking recording is working. Was that a new question? Yeah, it seems like a new question. So yeah, I checked it before when Vikram asked. So well, I always
Just say okay, right?
Yeah, press OK. Yep, it's working. Okay, so here, so guys, if you change the port group here, then I'm just gonna press OK, and now second thing is that we can just go back to E6501, right? And then we're already there in E601 and configure Yours is not loading sales. Mine's not. Paul is saying just VM network. It's not loading sales. Well, did you see that it created there E6i1 and we switch 0, select that. Do you see that created here in the diagram? Yeah, stay on the same E6i. Anthony is saying. Brian says port group is not VLAN. I mean VMs of one port group can connect to VMs of the other PG. Yes. If port group is not defined, yes, they can connect. So, Paul, is it showing to you or not? I hope you created the port group and it's actually showing here. I hope you saw that it's showing here, and then go to edit settings and refresh the whole browser and then try to do that. So it's just our the big application here and the virtual machine RAM. It just slows down everything. So okay, so guys, so here E6i01 configure and virtual switches. We're back here, right? So that's one thing that port groups are used for. If I show you the diagram here, so there's that one physical adapter here, right? One physical adapter. So we want to make it two physical adapters, right? How can we make it two, and why should we want to make it two? Well, there's a simple answer for that. Why? And that is you want NIC teaming here. You want LBFO, which is load balancing and failover. It's not LCBO, it's LBFO. Yeah, NIC teaming. So we can have LBFO, load balancing and failover, or NIC teaming for NIC teaming or network cards. So let's add a second NIC for virtual switch 0. Remember that we added 8 NICs there, so we have enough NICs. So we can add one more here to the vSwitch 0, right? So how can we add that? There is that if you select vSwitch 0, and then you can see on the top here the green icon here, this one. At least we must have one physical adapter. Exactly. Minimum we must have one physical adapter. So let's click that green icon here. And once you click the green icon, and you can see that it calls a physical network card as vMNIC0, right? And if I click plus sign here, so I can just add another one, right? Simple. So just go ahead and click that plus sign here. The physical adapter, in our case, Brahim, it is virtual, but normally in a production environment, this is a physical adapter always. So the hypervisor is installed directly on a HP physical server or IBM physical server or Dell physical server, so, and then they exactly see it like that. But VMware Workstation VMware has created, and it's very genius training software that it shows hypervisors ESXi. It fools them into thinking that they are on top of an actual hardware. So vMNIC0, I'm just going to click plus sign here, and whatever first NIC is available, vMNIC1 is available out of 8. So I'm just going to select 1 and keep it selected and press OK, right? So once you press OK, now you can see this, right? So if you can see vMNIC0 and vMNIC1, so they are both active right now. But if you keep the vMNIC1 selected, so then there's another comment by Ibrahim. If we have our E6i with one interface and 4 ports, it will display 4 physical adapter or one. One interface with 4 ports. 4 ports. Which ports are you referring to?
Physical card interface that have 4 ports. It's usually it's common.
Ethernet ports you're talking about.
Yes, Ethernet ports.
So well, if it has 4 Ethernet ports, that I have, there could be, yes, and normally there are 2 or 3 or 4. So Khalid says this is 4 physical, but I didn't check that before. So it should be 4 network cards because you can connect actually 4 virtual machines separately to that. Right, so 4 virtual machines, 4 physical machines or 4 cables you can connect. Each cable is one network card for the, for this. So if it's 4-port, it will be 4 network cards. Definitely it should be, because you can actually connect 4 cables to that, which could have been connected to 4 physical servers or 4 switch ports. Okay, so here, so guys, if you click that vMNIC1, if you select that, you can also see that you can use this down arrow here, and there's that standby adapters. It will be then active and passive, and any one, so VM0 will be only being used, and if it is down only, then standby adapter will become active. And if you do this vMNIC1 under unused adapters, then you will, obviously it's unused, and you can anytime put it to standby, but unused just means you totally don't use it. It's just spare network adapter here doing nothing. Or standby, it's just ready whenever vMNIC0 goes down, it will become active. Or better, go for both active network adapters, right? So we're gonna keep it to active adapters here, both there, right? And then press O and K. Right? Go ahead and press OK. And now you should be seeing 2 network adapters here. And one of them is orange. Other one is actually white. But that's if you have selected the VM kernel adapters, right? But if you select the port group, both of them are orange or selected. Or in NIC team right now, they're both active, and it's a combined bandwidth you're getting there. So if I select the other port group here, still both are active. So when you select the port groups, 2 network cards automatically are being offered, because obviously the virtual machines connected to those port groups may require a lot of bandwidth, right? But when we go to this VM kernel adapter, it's just 1 network card. Why? Because the VM kernel port, or this particular VM kernel port, is only used for a remote connection from a vCenter to a hypervisor. It's not a lot of bandwidth, right? It's not using a lot of bandwidth, right? Okay, Paul says, sir, after creating the sales group, what next? No problem. So, Paul, see this? Do you see this green one? So click that green one. Oh. Okay, for Paul, green one, and then click plus sign. And once you click plus sign, just select the whichever is the first one and press OK. Right. So once you have both of these vMNICs hopefully there, then press OK. So that's what we did. Hopefully you were able to see that. And then Madhuri says, and Madhuri says here, I don't understand. Okay, so yeah, first of all, you can see that whichever adapter is selected is being used for traffic, inbound and outbound traffic, whichever is selected, right? Whichever is orange, right? So when you select the management network, so this is just used for remote connectivity. So that's not a lot of bandwidth. But if you select the port group here, it is connected to virtual machines. Now there could be a SQL Server virtual machine. Suppose there are 10 virtual machines connected to the sales department PG, and all 10 are actually SQL Server. And SQL Server requires a huge amount of bandwidth when there are so many applications connected to that and so much data is there. It's a database, right? So SQL Server needs a lot of bandwidth, and that's why the port group, which is supporting virtual machines, has to have 2 network cards, or inbound, outbound data should be going to and from both network cards together. And but here there's less bandwidth, no virtual machines are connected, it's just remote connectivity. That's why just 1 network card is showing here. So that would be the explanation of that. The port groups have virtual machines don't need more bandwidth.
Is it always the scenario that the management network gets only one physical card?
Yes. So the management network, actually, if I go to the diagram here, so it would be this vCenter is connecting through its network card here to another network card, and that's it. Through that network card, it's just connecting or centrally managing this hypervisor, and then this network card is also connected to the second, only one network card here. So that's not using a lot of bandwidth, hence two network cards are not provided to this connectivity. But about virtual machines here, that we already talked about, that virtual machine there could be 1,000 users connected to this virtual machine. Another virtual machine, there could be 2,000 users connected to that, file servers maybe. So that would be a huge traffic, and for that, it lets, only for virtual machines, it lets two network cards be used. But the reason only is that vCenter connectivity to the hypervisor, it's just connectivity, right? So it doesn't use a lot of bandwidth. There's no virtual machine involved in that, like applications on the virtual machines that really require a lot of inbound data and outbound data. So it's just that this one does not have a lot of packets to conquer the wires and take over the whole bandwidth. So that's the reason only they get one network card. But suppose you want to give another network card. So if we go up there, guys, go ahead and select that management network. The boss says, suppose, no, our new policy is that we want both network cards to be added or be used for this VM kernel port as well. Okay, so how do you want to do that? The boss says you need to do that, that's it. So what you do is select this VM kernel port here. Once you select that VM kernel port, you can see that there's a pencil sign here. And when I was saying that port group not only does that separation of resources, organization of resources, but it has many other advanced features as well. So that's what we're about to see. So let's go inside the VM kernel port first of all. Then we're going to go to port group inside, and you're going to see that there are much more features inside each port group. So first of all, we just want two network cards to be used for management network as well, because the boss said so. Okay, although it has still less traffic, which is okay, so management network, and then click that pencil sign. Once you click that pencil sign here, so you can see the inside of the configuration area of VM kernel port, and there's properties, security. We're going to talk about that in a moment, but let's go down to the last one, which is teaming and failover, right? We're just fixing that, it should be using two network adapters instead of one, because the boss says so. So in that case, you can see in the teaming and failover that vmNIC is actually inside unused adapters by default. Again, the reason is this connectivity does not need two network adapters because it doesn't take that much bandwidth. So, but the boss says so. You can just go ahead and select, and you know what to do now. Select it and up this arrow and up again. Now when you put it this way, active, now for the VM kernel port that actually uses very less bandwidth, we have made available both network adapters with combined bandwidth for this kind of connectivity as well, which it's also okay, because it's not only about huge bandwidth or it has very less bandwidth. It's about that, suppose this network card actually goes down, it has some hiccup, it has some error there, malfunction. So the other network card would still have your connectivity from vCenter to the hypervisor available. So that's actually a good idea to do that, even for a less bandwidth requiring connection. So we did that. Hopefully we all did that, and press O and K. So once we press OK, now you should see that, yes, when you select this VM kernel port, now both adapters are selected for that as well. This is more for failover than load balancing, because not a lot of traffic is passing by for this particular VM kernel port, right? Okay, so we understand that, vSwitch 0, yes, we can create multiple port groups for organization. We understand that, okay, we have one default VM kernel port, and it's doing a very specific task, which is helping us remotely connect to this hypervisor and managing it as well. Hence the name is management network. So we really need this VM kernel port. It's okay, and we can add more port groups here as well. Okay, what else now? So okay, vSwitch is there and port group is there. So how about we go inside first the vSwitch and explore more of its properties there and more of its features, and also Not only that, we're going to go inside the vSwitch, then we're going to go inside one of the port groups and check that there are so many other features inside of security, load balancing, and redundancy, right? So we can go to the vSwitch 0 first of all, and then we can, there's a pencil sign. So go ahead and select that vSwitch 0 and click this pencil sign there as well. So once we select vSwitch 0 and click the pencil sign, now you can see that there is, first of all, properties, and it says number of ports, elastic, and MTU is 1500. So some of us here are Cisco gurus. So how about those Cisco gurus can tell me what is MTU? By this time I would have Googled it if I were in your place. So maximum transmission unit? Yes, you're right, exactly. Actually, nobody's saying it. Oh, Himan said it now. That's good. So maximum transmission or transmit unit, okay. And the purpose, anyone? Well, the purpose is that to, keep the packet size as 1500. You can just make it more as well, but for a very good reason. It's the speed exactly and how much data you want to take per packet. So this is when you have a lot of bandwidth increase there with lease lines. Maybe you can increase that, but even then normally we don't touch it. So number of ports, elastic just means that hey, you need suppose the number of ports means how many virtual machines are connecting. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now in one hypervisor, suppose there's a huge RAM, huge processor, a lot of disk space from SAN. So you could have maybe 50 virtual machines on one hypervisor. That's a lot of virtual machines, right? Hopefully your performance of each virtual machine is good. But elastic just means that you keep adding virtual machines and it will keep providing ports for the virtual machines. So elastic just means that there's no limitation of that. Or you won't be reaching 128 anyway. 128 virtual machines, well, technically you can if you have that kind of RAM and processor. So first of all, properties of the switch, and then we go for security here, and these are just some of the options there that normally stay that way unless you have a very good reason to change them. So first of all, there's that. That's it. So promiscuous mode, and that is that it is on reject, and that means that you have suppose there's an issue with the bandwidth. There's complaints going on there that the data is dropping and data is too slow. There's degradation of performance. So you try to find out that, hey, I need some diagnostic information over the network. I need to grab those packets with a sniffer. Anyone knows a famous sniffer software that grabs packet? I think we mentioned that before as well. Oh, I think it's not double F. But sniffer software. Anyone knows a sniffer software that grabs packets over the network? There's a very famous one that starts with, oh, there you go. Firoz says Wireshark, exactly. So suppose you install a Wireshark application there, and then you are you want to actually capture some packets going out of this hypervisor, because if you put that reject to accept, then promiscuous mode just means that it's going to give you diagnostic detailed information over the network. The packets that you would grab would have extra information about where they're coming from and how much of the packets were used by one application. Many details, many aspects of that, but the packets would be heavier, or the load will be more, or there will be detailed information in packets that you can try to read by after capturing those packets in Wireshark, and try to read them to try to know that over the network what is causing network bottleneck or bandwidth consumption, and then the traffic is too slow. What is causing traffic to be too slow, right? So promiscuous mode is on reject, should stay on reject unless you want to diagnose and capture those packets. You want more diagnostic information available in the packets so you can capture and analyze them. So unless you have that reason, then you keep it to reject. And then MAC address changes is just that there is normally you would use that in load balancer, and in load balancer what happens is that there are many machines there, and those virtual machines have their own MAC addresses there. This is just to make sure, suppose you have a unicast load balancing going on there. So instead of using the physical switch outside normally knows that what how many MAC addresses are there. So that's a PHY switch there, physical switch, right? So but you can just put MAC address changes, except that, hey, change the MAC address into just one MAC address, and load balancer says, hey, I have just one machine behind me, I don't have multiple machines, Mr. Switch there, physical switch. So you can just have this one MAC address placed there. So all the traffic, the physical switch doesn't have to know that there are so many other virtual machines with their unique MAC addresses. So this is just for unicast load balancing only scenario. In other scenarios, you just keep it as is, still like it is on accept. And second thing is that MAC address changes can only happen, suppose your virtual machine actually migrated from one hypervisor to another vCenter's hypervisor, so outside of your environment, right? Each hypervisor has a pool of MAC addresses as well. So when this virtual machine is migrated to some other environment, suppose you exported that machine with .ovf and then imported it to another environment, so there will be another MAC address given to that machine at that time. It will not keep the MAC address that is already there. And forged transmit just means that it is not going to let any transmission be forged because of change of MAC addresses. So it will try to defend any forging or impersonation of, hey, I am hacker, introduces a machine and introduces a MAC address. So it will not let that impersonation happen if forged transmit is on accept. This means that it's going to be on a lookout for any unknown MAC addresses there that are not provided by the hypervisor itself, and maybe hacker came up with a virtual machine that has its own MAC address and tried to introduce it as a legit machine inside. So it will accept means just that it's going to prevent anyone else outsider from impersonating as the legit virtual machine inside. So these configurations are supposed to be as is, and we're not supposed to really mess with them unless we have a very good reason to make some changes. So I'm just gonna make that screenshot here, and I'll put it here. All right, and then there is traffic shaping. So that's another thing. Traffic shaping just means that you don't want all the virtual machines of this vSwitch 0. Suppose behind this vSwitch 0 are 30 virtual machines, right? And they are all using a lot of bandwidth. And if you want to put a cap on the bandwidth, again, I may have mentioned that before as well. Whenever there is a critical machine asking for bandwidth, first of all, it's a critical machine, right? So it is running your company. So there may be a legit reason that it's asking for more bandwidth. So putting a cap on bandwidth usage for critical machines is not a very good idea, right? Instead, try to make more bandwidth available for them, for the critical machines, by putting a cap on the bandwidth usage from non-critical machines, right? So suppose there were critical machines behind this vSwitch 0. So it says that, hey, you want to just suppose you enable that. So it just means that average bandwidth you can use is 100,000 kilobits per second, but not more than that. Peak bandwidth you can go up to whatever bandwidth number you want to put there, or 100,000 is already there. And then there's burst size of 100,000, 124. Okay, so it's 10,000, 2,400, right? Wow, did I say it correct? Okay, anyway, so the burst size, so it depends on, you want to put a cap on your critical machine. Suppose it's non-critical machines, you can enable it, and it should not be going more than that. If that's too much as well, then even put it down to 50,000, instead of 100,000. But you can put a cap on the bandwidth that you're using there. And then teaming and failover. So it has route based on originating virtual port. There's that. So load balancing configurations are there. Network failure detection configurations are there: notify switches and then fail back. So this is also a type of 4 types of configurations here. What is it talking about? So it says here load balance. I should load balance the traffic. So what's this route based on originating virtual port, route based on source MAC hash, and route based on IP hash, and use explicit failover. So what is it all about? So first of all, suppose you have a lot of virtual machines here, right? And virtual machines are sending traffic to your virtual switch vSwitch 0 and VSS and 0, that is. And that VSS 0 has actually network cards here now, right? So network card 1, network card 2, network card 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 4, maybe 8, maybe 6, whatever. So what happens is that route based on originating virtual port. So virtual port, it could be actually port 80, it could be port 443. Suppose the traffic originated from, suppose you selected that. So the traffic originated or port 1433. We all understand that first one is HTTP, second is HTTPS, third is SQL Server, right? So suppose you selected this option. So this option means that whatever the port is, if it was a SQL Server and port 1433 was used, so it goes to virtual switch, and virtual switch, standard switch, send it to one network card. Suppose this randomly selects one of the network cards. Okay, from now on, this traffic is going to be coming to you. So what that means is this type of traffic on the first day was recommended to this or redirected to this network card. So this means that this traffic always will go to this network card unless it is being overwhelmed. It is too much, then it will be load balanced among all other network cards. This is the same case for MAC hash. Suppose somebody's MAC address, so all machines, suppose you selected MAC hash, so they all have MAC addresses as well, right? And first day this machine sent a data, and that data was redirected randomly to this network card. So this network card will always receive data from the MAC address that it received the first day unless it gets overwhelmed with a lot of data, and it will load balance into other network cards. So this is the same case for IP hash and then explicit failover. IP hashes, there was an IP for this virtual machine, suppose you selected that option. So whatever machine sent first day the data and it recommended that network card, suppose, it will always receive that traffic because of this IP here, and unless it is overwhelmed, and then it will load balance. Explicit failover is just that whichever machine sends data to whichever network card, if the network card goes down, it just simply fails over to another one. So this is random for all the data. So originating port is the default option here, but this is other load balancing options that we're talking about. So I'm just gonna go ahead and select that. Okay, and then there is notify switches. So, network failure detection. So it has just 2 options here, and those 2 options are that you have link status only, which means that it will just check that its connection, its link to the network is up or not. Suppose outside it is going to 4 physical switches there, and outside there are 4 network cards and they're connected to 4 physical switches, suppose. So link status, hey, link is up or down. This is up, this is up, this is down. So, oh, I'm not going to send data to this one, but I'm going to send data to this one and this one. So this is link status, right? But what about the beacon probing? Beacon probing is that it's going to send a packet that's going to investigate the directly connected and surrounding networks and check that which network is actually up and running and which is not. So it's going to send a probe, and that is like it found out that, okay, this switch is actually disconnected, or there's a network not connected there, and then the probe comes back and tells or updates the switch that, okay, you can just send it the traffic through these switches and this switch, but don't send to this network. Or maybe it was connected from there, or maybe it was connected to another switch here, and the disconnectivity is from here, so it will just not send that traffic to this switch, it will only send to this and this. So beacon probing is, hey, find out if my network is okay, and let me know. Or link statuses, that directly connected links, are they up or not? So that's a simple one, right? So that's what the network failure detection means here. I know that's a theory, but there's a lot of labs coming your way very soon, and but yeah, if it's important, we have to go through this. Oops, where are you? Okay, guys, then there is notify switches, and that is yes or no. Yes, obviously, notify switches. If the link is down, notify it. Failback. What is failback? So if this was failback, first of all, is used in this configuration. Which one? See this? If I put it like this, if active adapter is 1 or 2 or which how many numbers, and there's a standby as well, right? So failback would be that the first adapter actually crashed and it was active, so the second adapter became active, and then for some time, and then it was also fixed, the first adapter, and it the second adapter is the active, but the first one also is fixed now, right? So if the first one is fixed, it's going to put the second adapter back there to the standby and fail back to the recovered first adapter again. So that's the failback. Failback is yes. This means that if it goes down and the other one takes over, so other one does not keep on working if the first one comes back. It only keeps on working second one if first one doesn't come back, right? If it comes back, so it has to fail back, it will go back to its place, and the first one will again be working as active adapter, right? So that's just fail back, right? So that is also something that I will put here. All right, all right, or all right, all right. Okay, guys. So here we understand that virtual switch has properties, security, traffic shaping, teaming and failover. So that's a lot of options to configure. But then, what about those port groups? So if let's just cancel out from here. Let's just cancel out from here, and so we went inside the configuration of vSwitch 0. Then there are port groups inside the or attached to the virtual switch. Let's go click the sales department port group. Let's click the sales department port group, and then go to the pencil sign here as well. So sales department port group and pencil sign, right? Once we click here, so you can see that the cool thing, first of all, it is not like vSwitch 0 from the start. Like there is no MTU here, right? We don't need that. So port groups, instead of MTU, it will show VLAN feature there. Second thing is, well, you can just rename it anytime you want, and the rest you will see are totally the same features again. And the good thing is you can override any of the vSwitch 0 feature on any of the port group. On the port group level, you can override any of the features that are being inherited by the virtual switch 0. So we can just suppose I want to override that, so I can just change that. So the switch is actually rejecting, while you've accepted it for only sales department port group. So you can do that too. So the options are exactly the same for traffic shaping, security, and teaming and failover. But the thing is that you can actually override them on the port group level. That's what you can do with port groups. So they're not only this dead folders, like they're just for organization. They can offer teaming and failover, traffic shaping, and security and load balancing. Lots of features there for each port group that you can configure. So that's a very cool thing, right? So so suppose this port group had non-critical machines. So you would go to traffic shaping, and you would just put the enable there, and then their bandwidth cannot be used more than 100,000 kilobits per second. So that's for non-critical. And for the critical ones, the other port group, suppose you would just keep it as enabled, right? Oh well, disabled, sorry. You would just keep it as disabled. So this is how you can just manage the whole traffic on port group level. So that's really useful, right? Okay, guys, so let's just cancel out from the port group as well. Now we understand that, okay, we have vSwitch 0, it has a lot of features. Then we can create multiple port groups according to the whatever the scenario is, for department wise, branch wise, team wise, whatever, how you want to divide and organize the virtual machines. And vSwitch 0 is there. So normally just one switch is not a very good idea. What really is going to be the best, that if suppose you're introducing a vMotion feature here, right? Suppose there's a vMotion feature, and that means live migration, right? So you would you can technically you can configure that feature in vSwitch 0 as well. This means that when virtual machines are migrating, they can use the same two network cards that are already offering bandwidth consumption to all the virtual machines of sales department port group and all the virtual machines of the default port group here. And maybe you had two more port groups, so those virtual machines there as well. So that's already they're doing too much task, and then you have added a vMotion feature to the same switch with two network cards. So that's not really best practice. So we're about to do vMotion, and then we need to create actually vSwitch 0. Instead of vSwitch 0, we can go for vSwitch 1, and we're going to connect it to its own two network cards, which are different, right? So that's why we added in the first place total 9 network cards there, because for every new feature it will have its own bandwidth consumption, which is not disturbing other virtual machines bandwidth consumption, and its bandwidth consumption will not be disturbed by other virtual machines. So that's why we're gonna be adding now more virtual switches one by one, and while we're introducing new features. So one virtual switch, we understand that, okay, so it has all these configurations there. When we have two virtual switches, what do we do with that? That's what we do. We introduce a new virtual switch when we are introducing another feature, so we could connect two new network cards so it could have its own bandwidth consumption. So that's the best practice. Depends on your boss, depends on your environment, depends on your budget, and depends on how much you're fighting actually. So then they get you those facilities there. Hey, I need 4 network cards here, boss, for this. Why did you purchase for 2 network cards? Please, can we add 4 or 2 more or 6 more? Suppose that was an older hardware comparatively, right? So it's up to you. So guys, we understand that we're going to be adding now more virtual switches here. So let's do that. But we're going to do that with another advanced feature called vMotion now, right? So networking, this area we'll be using a lot. We're going to keep on coming back here throughout the course now. But we understand the architecture and the working of typical vSwitch 0 here. So when vSwitch 1 comes here, obviously you can also have port groups there and 2 network adapters. vSwitch 2 port groups there and network adapters. So it's the same usage for all the virtual switches that we will be adding throughout the course, right? So that said, let's talk about the vMotion as well, and let's then migrate our virtual machines from one hypervisor to another. That would, that's always the, our excitement goes really touches the skies when we are able to migrate the virtual machines. So it's a very exciting feature. So, okay guys, we talked about vSwitch 0, and we're gonna use this networking feature again and again now extensively for pretty much all the advanced features that we are about to introduce in this environment. So let's go for another feature called vMotion, and in that feature we're gonna be migrating this virtual machine or one of the virtual machine from hypervisor E6i1, E6i2, and there are different types of vMotions there, vMotion that we will be using there. And again, to your surprise, there actually is a slide for that too. And if we put that here, well, Migrating virtual machines. So there are different types of migrations there, but there are a lot of points to be noted, Milord, for migrations. Just like in the courts they use in back home. So objection, my lord. Okay. So here there are so many migration types there, and there are lots of prerequisites for the most sensitive type of migration, and that is the vMotion, where the machine is actually powered on and then you're migrating. So there is a cold migration. Migrate a virtual machine that is powered off. Now that's not a big deal, and this table actually shows exactly how that with migration needs what kind of prerequisites, and then we're going to start configuring those prerequisites, and then we're going to actually start migrating our resources as well. So there's a cold migration here, and that virtual machine is powered off. And do you want to change the host from E6i1 to E6i2 back and forth, and or do you want to change the data store as well? So virtual machines vmdk file, right? Virtual disk, you want to change that too. So you can do all that. Both you can change the hypervisors and data stores. Both you can do that. But we're going to do that, and then I'm going to explain more of it. Across vCenter, suppose you have two vCenters. It's a big environment, so yes, you can do that too here. And share for if the machine is off, do you need SAN for that? No, you don't. Machine is off, right? So you can just migrate without shared network as well. That's where another requirement which is not needed for cold is different CPU families. Your processors must be from same vendor, and yes, the slides are actually already there, Madhuri, on that resources area in Blackboard, but I'll just put the slides here as a link as well at the end of the class, so you can download all the slides. So different CPU families allowed. So these are all, if suppose one of the hypervisor is AMD processor and the other hypervisor is Intel, so if it is cold migration, machine is off, even that is still possible with different processors. So when you have suspended virtual machine, now you are working and all of a sudden, so the machine was connected by 200 users and they were making changes, and all of a sudden there was a degradation of performance, and you want to actually migrate the virtual machine. So you decided that the prerequisites of vMotion are not there, so I will suspend the machine and then I will migrate, right? Suspension does what? It freezes anything that was open, it just freezes it at that state. Any windows that were open, it just saves it as is, and then it suspends the machine or turns off. So suspended virtual machine, you can change the host or you can change the data store as well. And across vCenter, if suppose there were two vCenters in a big environment, yes, you can even migrate a virtual machine, suspended one across the vCenter, and then you don't need shared storage there as well. But now you must meet CPU compatibility requirements. That's a very important thing, guys. What happens is that if you purchase a hypervisor, so every year companies have budgets and sometimes they don't have budgets, right? So whichever year they have some more budget left and they say, hey, you want to purchase something, IT department, and suppose you come up there and say, yes, we need 2 more hypervisors or 3 more hypervisors or 4 more hypervisors, right? So some companies purchase after 2 years, 3 years or 4 years, or whenever there's a requirement, or whenever there's a budget. So this happens that you will have older hypervisors and you will have always newer hypervisors. This always happens, whichever company you join, right? So what happens is that if you have Intel and that is older, it has to be from the same family of Intel processors for the migration to happen. Virtual machine is about to migrate from this hypervisor to another, but if this is latest Intel processor and this one is actually second, third generation, this is 7th or 8th or 9th generation here. So if it's not from the same family as well, then migration will not happen. If it's AMD, it's Intel, definitely it's not going to happen anyway, with suspended and vMotion both. But you have to have the Intel family. So the processor, and how do you know that they're from the same families? First of all, there's a feature called EVC that I'm going to be showing you soon when we have create cluster, enhanced vMotion compatibility. EVC feature will tell you, hey, your suppose you have 24, suppose you have 16 hypervisors, right? 16 hosts, 16 physical machines. They are all inside the cluster. EVC will check and tell you which hypervisor is from which Intel family, what processor it has. It will just go to the processor, it will check right away, oh, okay, this processor is from this Intel family. So this feature we will be introducing, and then we will check together our own hardware as well. But the main thing is that to understand here is that not only that it should be Intel. Suppose you have all Intel processors, but it also have to belong to same family, and same family means suppose there was an Intel processor released in 2018, then there were some more extra features released on the same processors in 2019. Then some more advanced features were added and released in 2020. So that could be in same Intel family because there is no basic architectural change there. But if there's a basic architectural change, you might see that it belongs now to a different family. If it's different family hypervisors, you cannot migrate them. So non-technical bosses don't understand that. You have to explain them, hey boss, this is a bit more older, so we can't add these older hypervisors here to our cluster. So yeah, next year just try to buy some more. So well, the thing is that the processors have to be not having a lot of incompatibilities in terms of features. That's the main idea behind it. And then vMotion, in that, this is the most attractive feature here, the vMotion. The machine is powered on, the users are using that machine. Suppose you tell the user, hey users, can you give me 10 minutes, I'll migrate. Migration will be happening in few seconds, right? You're just asking for 10 minutes if something goes wrong, right? So first of all, machine is on, end users are connected, and you can change the host. Yes, you can change the host. Hypervisor 1 to hypervisor 2, E6i1 to E6i2. Second thing, you can migrate it across the vCenters. Yes, you can do that. And you need to have SAN. We have that SAN already in place now, but you must have SAN once they're already attached, right? And then must meet CPU compatibility requirement. Very, very important here. Whenever you're doing purchasing, you as a VMware administrator have to keep that in mind, that CPU compatibility could become a big issue with a bit older hypervisors and newer hypervisors collection. And then there is vSphere storage vMotion. What is storage vMotion? Storage vMotion is the VMDK file. We know that, right? VMDK. This is the hard disk file, right? And .vmx file, right? This is for configuration. And .vmsd file. This is for snapshot. So .vmem. And then there are so many memory file and then other files there. So guys, all those files you want for one virtual machine, you want to move its virtual machine files from one data store to another, DS0 to DS1 or DS1 to DS2. So you can do that too, right? But you don't need for that shared storage. You can go migrate across the vCenters as well. And CPU compatibility has nothing to do with when you're moving just a bunch of files there, right? And cross-host vSphere vMotion just means that you're doing virtual machine powered on virtual machine vMotion. You're migrating the powered on virtual machine, and also at the same time you're moving all the files from one data store to another. That is called cross-host vSphere vMotion. So you're doing two tasks at the same time. That is this. And yes, we're going to do that too. So in one session, we're going to change the hypervisor of one virtual machine from one hypervisor to another. And in that same session, then first when it changes the hypervisor, then it's going to automatically start the movement of virtual machines, virtual files from one data store to another data store as well. So that's two types of movements in one. First, so what we're going to do is we're going to understand some more of it, code suspended vSP motion, and then let's start configuring this, in our environment and try to do that vMotion. So I'll just show some more of the points of what prerequisites vMotion really needs, and then we can go ahead. Okay, so other than that, vMotion, there are 5 types of vMotion there, or migrations there. Then the slide just talks about different scenarios. I'm just going to take you to some specific ones because it's a very long slide, and I'm going to be explaining the same options when we are doing it anyway. But some of the slides that are showing some diagrams, I'll just show those as well. That okay, it's the memory content that travels from one hypervisor to another, and the virtual disk does not move. That's what we discussed before as well, that if virtual disk had to move, it's going to take all night or all day, right? So we can't do that kind of mistake by moving the virtual disk of a virtual machine. It could be 200 GB, 300 GB, right? 90 GB even. That takes a lot of time to migrate from one data store to another. So it's just the memory contents of a virtual machine. What memory contents mean is, suppose the users were adding or removing a file, so that information is stored on the memory. Users are connected there, they have opened so many files, or so many windows are open, so that's a very small data that is loaded on the memory, and that moves right away in few seconds to the other hypervisor's RAM. So that's all you move when you're migrating a powered on virtual machine. And there are some prerequisites, actually requirements, or what should not be there. So guys, whatever we're discussing, obviously I'll put that link to download the slides as well. Your quiz is on Wednesday or Thursday? I think it's on Wednesday, right? Or is it on Thursday? I think it's on Wednesday. Yes, you're right. Okay. So in that quiz, it will be open book, and you will have all the slides there, and you will have 25 questions. So so Anthony says it's Thursday and it's not Wednesday. Oh, okay, yeah. Last time I said Thursday. Okay. So Thursday, 8 to 9, and we have a class on Wednesday. Oh, okay, cool. So, okay, guys, it's gonna be Thursday, and well, all the slides by this, at the end of this class, I'm gonna give you a link to just go ahead and download all the slides, and whatever we covered, we're gonna just you can also watch the videos, but it's open book. Although you're not gonna have that kind of time with 25 questions, but open books sometimes help. And okay, guys, here. So what we're talking about is it must not have a connection to an internal standard switch, which has 0 uplink. So it's just saying some of the things that make sure that you don't have that. If you have that, vMotion will not happen, right? So make sure these things are removed, right? So what are these things? So it must not have a connection to an internal standard switch, virtual switch with 0 uplink adapters. What does that mean? Now it means that you have a switch there, vSS 0, right? So that switch, and then you have another switch, vSS 1, virtual switch 1. Then you have another switch, virtual switch 2, right? So this virtual switch 0 is connected to a network card. This virtual switch is not connected to any network card, and this virtual switch is connected to a network card. So it's just saying that why would you not connect a network card to a virtual switch? Maybe that virtual switch you will use later, right? Maybe that virtual switch is used for testing environment only. You don't want any machines connected to that virtual switch sending data outside. So you can use a virtual switch, and you may not be attaching a network card. You can do that too, right? So what happens is that VSS1, so it's just saying that if the virtual machine is connected to the port group, and that port group is connected to a virtual switch that has a network card, it's okay. But if virtual machine connects to a port group of a switch, that switch which does not connect to a physical network card, then it's not going to migrate. That's what it's saying here, right? It's not going to migrate if the physical card is not connected to the virtual switch. So second thing is, it must not have a connection to a virtual device. So DVD, CD, DVD, or floppy drive. So it says that, remember that when we installed the operating system, guys, that we had a virtual machine here, and we connected an ISO of Windows Server 2016, I think, or Windows 2012. We all installed the operating system, right? So if that ISO is still attached to the DVD, virtual DVD of the virtual machine, then vMotion will not happen. You have to remove this ISO from the virtual machine that is about to migrate. So the reason for that is, when it migrates to another hypervisor, it needs to still, if the ISO was mapped, maybe ISO was attached from a file server, and that file server is not accessible from where the virtual machine has now migrated, right? So ISO must not be attached if you want to migrate. That's what it's saying. And then CPU affinity just means that if you have a CPU, so suppose you have a virtual machine here, and suppose you have a hypervisor, right? Oh, okay. Okay, somebody switched on the mic. So, you agree? Okay. So yeah. Okay. So sometimes it's the mic gets clicked, and yeah. So what was I talking about? Yeah, I was talking about. I think we should get down to lab. I think we're all. Hopefully, we're all listening. But I understand that when there is a long theory, it's we get bored to death as well. But if it was entertainment, I would have started dancing or something like that, right? But if it's studies, so we need to have some theory as well. That's critical for the interview as well. Okay, guys. So as I was saying there, that hey, was it a message for okay, let me just finish that, and then let's take a break. Maybe that was a message to, hey, teach, break, what happened? Okay, so CPU affinity just means that if there was a host there, right, and on the host you have a virtual machine here, and that virtual machine has a application. Suppose it's SQL Server. I always give the example of SQL Server. It's a messy, it's a beast, right? So what happens is that SQL Server, it needs a processor that, suppose this SQL Server has so much data there, and it's a really busy one, enterprise edition, and so the CPU also is suppose 32 core CPU. That's a heavy, right? 32 core CPU. So CPU affinity just means that this virtual machine has affinity with this CPU, which means the application of this virtual machine cannot really work without this CPU. And you also know that all other hypervisors actually do not have this kind of power. They all have 16 core or 8 core CPUs there. If your virtual machine got migrated to another hypervisor that has less cores there, then obviously this application will have degradation of performance. So CPU affinity just means that the virtual machine is has an affinity with the CPU. You cannot migrate it away from this hypervisor. So that's called CPU affinity, right? And then there is swap file. So it just says that if you want to migrate a virtual machine from one hypervisor to another, so this virtual machine must be able to create a swap file there as well. Swap file is used where when there's less memory and some part of the hard disk is being used as a memory, right? So that is swap file. So it just says that it will only migrate, or if it knows that it will be able to create a swap file at the destination host connected ones there as well, right? Then it will only migrate. And then the final is RDM here. and that is raw device mapping. That's also very interesting option feature here. Raw device mapping is that the host, there's a host and then there's a virtual machine here. That virtual machine is on top of a of ones here, right? So it is on top of a one here. So that one here is not very, it's very slow because there are so many other virtual machines there as well. I'm just explaining raw device mapping now, right? So that has other virtual machines. So how about you give a full dedicated shared disk or LAN to this machine, so this machine can install its application on a dedicated LAN here, and it is not shared by any other virtual machine. So that is called RDM, or raw device mapping. It's a raw disk that is just available over the network to this virtual machine and it's very good. It gives very good IOPS there, especially read speed there. So RDM is for IOPS, right? Okay guys, so these are the scenarios which you need to avoid in order to get that vMotion working. So let's go for vMotion. So okay. Alright guys, so since nobody's asking for a break, so let's continue, and we're gonna take a break at 8:49. Okay, let's start after break. Oh, after break. Oh, break. There's a break. Okay, so guys, let's take a break here, and let's come back at 15 minutes because the most exciting lab is we're gonna migrate the machines from one hypervisor to another. So 8:06, right? So 8:20 we can meet. Let's meet at 8:20. Yay! I'll resume that. So back to, I was gonna say back to the break. No, back from the break, and so let's. So Amarjeet, did you rescan your storage? So hopefully you know how to do that, or I'll show you now that you can try to.
Yes, sir. I already done that.
Seeing this. Then I'm going to just go to E6i1 here, and then try to go to configure and storage adapters here. So configure is already there, and storage adapters, and try to rescan. Just click this small button here. Ready?
Okay. Right.
Okay. And it should be good if all your machines are up. It will just simply refresh the connectivity. Hopefully it does. And then do the same thing for 46i2 as well, and it should be good. Alright guys, so what we need to do for vMotion migration. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. So first we will try to understand what we need here. So I'm just gonna go back to the slide here. So these are some of the things that we need to know. Otherwise I'll be showing obviously all types of features. There's one more table here that shows actually that make sure that the processor features for the hypervisors are similar. If they are different, there should not be a very big gap. That's what it's saying here, and we talked about that already, that the processors have to be from the same family, or that's it. There's no or. Otherwise, if they're from different families or different vendors altogether, it's not going to work, right? So the slides are a lot there, but main points I have actually summarized here. Otherwise, the whole 4 hours will be just spent on the slide, and there's so much labs that we have to go for, right? So definitely you will get the slide at the end of the class. Guys, at the end of class, just say the word slides. That's it. I'll then send the link in WhatsApp, and you can all download that before the Thursday. Just go through those, and also whatever's covered in the video and whatever's in OneNote, the quiz will be from there, right? So we're gonna go and check it out now, what we need in terms of requirements for the lab and to do the migration, especially the vMotion where the machine is powered on. You need a lot of configurations before you could go ahead. So for some of our requirements are already there, done. CPU compatibility, obviously in our case, I think we all agree that the both hypervisors have the same CPU, right? Obviously. So it's a nested virtualization, so they just are using the same CPU. Second thing is vMotion interface. So minimum 1 Gbps adapter. Now our machines may have, some of the newer machines that you have may have actually 10 Gbps. Otherwise minimum 1 Gbps our adapters already are. So that's also okay. So for vMotion we must have a SAN. Yes, we have a software SAN configured here, and so that requirement is also okay. Same naming for virtual board groups. Remember that when I was saying that each virtual switch, when the hypervisor gets installed first, so the virtual switch creates a default port group called VM network. So both E6i01 hypervisor and E6i2 hypervisor both have the default port group there, right? And if you go for the next one, then there's sufficient resources on the target host. So there's that CPU, RAM, bandwidth. So sufficient resources. Well, yeah, for one virtual machine we have enough RAM and processor for one empty virtual machine. So now vMotion works, or migration works with an operating system inside a virtual machine or without an operating system inside virtual machine. The setup is exactly the same for migration, so you can try any one of those when you are later trying at home as well. So at least one vSphere Essential Plus license. Our trial version has actually Enterprise Plus license. That's the top license, so this is minimum, and Essential Plus license should be there at least. And some more detail about the prerequisites for the migration. So CPU requirements, we already said it's check, it's okay. But now we need to create network configuration so our vMotion should work, or live migration should work fine. Now this is that crucial requirement. Other than the the rest of the prereqs that we talked about, we need to create a VM kernel port or VM kernel adapter in ESXi1 and ESXi2. If we do that for vMotion, then the vMotion will work. If you don't create a VM kernel adapter that is dedicated for the vMotion, then obviously the migration will not work. So what are we creating here? We're creating a VM kernel port that we were talking about, that it introduces networking features for advanced networking configurations for advanced features, right? So we're going to be creating a VM kernel adapter for vMotion, right? So this means you're basically preparing E6i01 host and the other host E6i02. You're preparing them to have vMotion feature available there. You're just preparing them for that, right? So let's go ahead to E6i1 first and create VM kernel adapter. You need to be very careful about that, and any misconfiguration will result in that you won't be able to migrate. So be very, very careful what you do now. So let's click that vCenter here, guys, and in the vCenter we're going to yeah, so in the vCenter, let us go for the ESXi01 here. In ESXi1, what do? We're going to go to configure, which is already selected there, but here we're going to go down to networking, and we're going to go to VM kernel adapters. So again, within vCenter, ESXi01, configure VM kernel adapters. Hopefully everyone's there. So we need to add the networking configuration for the advanced feature called vMotion now. And VM kernel adapter, if you have selected that, then you can see the same globe sign and the green plus sign there on top. So let's click that add host networking. Once you click that add host networking, now you can see the familiar interface that we saw before as well. But this time we're not going for the third one or the second one for physical network adapter. That was that green icon. So we're going for the first one because we need to introduce one of the advanced features, which is vSphere vMotion now. So let's keep it selected, VM kernel network adapter. But we're gonna follow the best practices, right? Oh, no voice? Guys, can you hear me? Guys, can you hear me? Yes, okay. If any, what happened? If any, all others can hear me. So please shoot your side. Okay. All right. Oh, I can hear now. Okay, that's good. So guys, here what we're doing is that vSphere vMotion. So we're gonna keep this VM kernel network adapter selected here and click next. So remember that we're going for best practice. So we're not going to push this advanced feature into the same switch. We're going to create a new standard switch here, right? Why? Because the only reason is that we have enough physical network cards, right? That's the only reason. If suppose you have just 2 network cards, so creating a separate switch, okay, like it's gonna be still the traffic is separately going from another switch to those network cards, but that's not gonna be good then. It's the 2 network cards that bearing the brunt of everything. So the better thing would have been then just stick to the main switch if you have the existing switch, if you have only 2 network adapters there, right? So new standard switch here, let's select that and click next. Once you click next here, obviously let's go for 2 extra network adapters here. So I'm just going to click plus sign here. I see vMNIC2, the physical adapter, and vMNIC3. So I'm just going to press on shift button and select both and press O and K, right? So vMNIC2 and vMNIC3 and press OK, right? And well, once you have added the 2 network adapters, so that's the best practice here, that now it's separate. 2 network adapters are dedicated for the bandwidth only of vMotion. So I'm just going to click next. And then, yeah, we need to name it vMotion. That's it, right? Simple. vMotion, right? So we don't have to put any VLAN ID here. It's not using IPv6, so IPv4 is okay. What is this option here, TCP/IP stack? So TCP/IP stack is that you can dedicate this whole stack or the TCP/IP protocol just for vMotion. Now, what does that mean? So, see this? If you drop down this and then you click vMotion, suppose, go ahead and do that. Actually, it's not supposed we're going to do that, but I'm just explaining as well. Once you select that, it's not going to let you use any other advanced feature here. Although, suppose I just put it back to default, right? But I'm going to go back to vMotion again finally. But suppose you put it back to default. So suppose you select vMotion, but later, suppose you have just, excuse me, total 4 network cards, 2 network cards dedicated for the vSwitch 0, and the rest of the 2, the only other 2 remaining, you put it on vSwitch 1. So then boss says, hey, how about fault tolerance feature? Implement that too. So you can come back to the same VM kernel port and enable that too. So fault tolerance also requires a lot of bandwidth. vMotion also separately requires. Both are different features, but technically you can configure all these features on the same switch on the 2 network cards there connected to the same switch, right? We're not going to do that. So I'm just going to make sure that we select vMotion, that this vSwitch 1 and the 2 separate network cards are dedicated only for vMotion traffic, right? That's what we're saying here. So vMotion written there, vMotion selected here. You have to select this one as well and click next. And then there is, well, you can use the IP from DHCP, or since it's a critical feature, we can use the static IP here. So yes, you have to set aside some static IPs if you're planning to have vMotion with static IP configuration. Suppose you want to go for, no, DHCP will give the IP, then we will reserve it. Yes, some administrators do that too, right? But you can, it's better to not rely on DHCP for critical resources. So we can go for 200.10 and 11 for, suppose you had 200 hypervisors and you want to configure vMotion on all 200 hypervisors. So obviously you have to have 200 separate IP addresses set aside just for that. So here 10 and 11 we can just go for the VM kernel port IP addresses dedicated only for vMotion feature. Excuse me. So 255.255.255.0. It says, hey, you want to change the gateway? No, we want to have the same gateway, 200.1. So if you want to change, then you select this option and put some other gateway. We don't need to do that. So, and DNS servers, yes, that's the default. 200.1 is our DNS as well. So once you've put that option here, then click next. Oh, so Anthony says, so vMotion requires dedicated IPs. Yes, dedicated IPs, exact. vMotion requires dedicated IPs either from DHCP or static, yes. So let's click next. And there you go. Well, that's what I configured. That's what we configured. So that's exactly how we're going to go for second server hypervisor. I'm going to configure the VM kernel adapter there the same way with 200.11 IP. So click finish. Well, as far as ESXi1 is concerned, and we're going to go through the prerequisites again, and then we're going to check out that, yeah, it's kind of ready. So we need to go to the same view on ESXi2 as well. So I'm just going to select, okay. So Ajibola says, please can we take steps back to select connection type? Oh, I already, connection type. Okay, I'll double click that and go to edit, and well, now it's showing this way. So connection type, where did you see that? Okay, you know what, I'm gonna start that on this side too as well, then you can tell me. Or if you can show him next host. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. And Himal also says the same thing. I'm going to go to the next host now. And I'm going to go for add host networking here. This one. Because I already clicked finish. So now it's not showing that way. So I'm going to the next host to show where. And you can tell me now where you want me. VM kernel network adapter. Arti says. Okay, Ajibola, so it says here, so VM kernel network adapter, oh, that's the connection type. Oh, you're starting, okay. So yeah, just select the first one. And then next. So yeah, keep it first one selected. And then next. So now we're going for new standard switch. We're going for new standard switch. Next. And we're going to add two network adapters. Now you will see VM NIC 1 here as well, because we did not add this to the vSwitch 0 like we did that on ESXi01. So just for consistency sake, here also we can select 2 and 3 because we selected 2 and 3 in ESXi1 as well, right? But suppose technically you can just go for 7 and 8 as well, while you selected 2 and 3 there in ESXi1. Here you can go for 7 and 8 as well, and it's going to work fine. Just saying for consistency sake that the configuration should be same. It's recommended as well, best practices. So just go for VMNIC 2, 3 and press O and K. And click next. So after that, yes, so this is the same thing we did in the first host, vMotion. You type the name label as vMotion, and you go for dedicated. So I'm just going to select vMotion, and also we're going to go for vMotion here. But if you just select that, it just definitely selects only vMotion there. So vMotion is selected. Just make sure you put the name and you selected this as well. So that's what we did in previous post as well. And next here, you just need to make sure that the IP is not from DHCP, although technically yes, you can have an IP from DHCP as well. But I'm going to go for 10 and 11. So this is 11, 192, 168. Previous one was 10, 200.11. Previous was E6I1 is 10, right, for this area. And 255, 255, 255, 0. So we're going to keep the rest same, but the thing is that 200.11 is 46I2, 200.10 is 46I1, and that's it. Next and finish. Next and finish. Yay! So that's how we create the second one, that's how we create the first one as well. Same thing. So click Finito. Okay guys, so now we can just go ahead and try to check the rest of the prerequisites before we can start the migration process. So I'll just go back here. So yeah, CPU same, yeah. VM kernel adapter added to both hypervisors with this vMotion name there, yes, check. Make sure vSwitch 0 have 2 port groups. Okay. About the port groups, we already know that we have a default port group VM network there, right? So Madhuri is asking for screenshot. Yeah, we didn't have a screenshot for today. Okay, so yeah. So guys, 2 screenshots here. One screenshot, I'll just take that. I'm gonna go to E6I1, where you see that VM kernel adapter is added. So VM kernel adapter vMotion added to E6I1. That's the name of the screenshot number 1. So I'm just going to take that and name it as well. So let's take 2 screenshots now, guys. And so that is the configuration area. So the screenshot name is, I'll just put it on WhatsApp now. And so its screenshot name would be VM kernel, KERNAL, kernel adapter for vMotion created on ESXi01. So that's the screenshot that's gone here to the WhatsApp. I'm going for ESXi2 here, and we'll grab the same screenshot from here as well. So it is this VM kernel adapters. All right, and we go back to, this is screenshot number 2. So obviously VM kernel adapter for VM kernel adapter for vMotion on ESXi02. So the second screenshot and its name is also on WhatsApp. So you could just, okay, so there is comments there. There are comments. Anthony says, I'm confused about the difference between VM kernel adapters and virtual switches and why VM kernel adapters have IPs. And Babatunde says, can I edit the network label name? I didn't rename one of the adapters. Yeah, you can just go ahead and click the edit button, on it. And so yeah, Anthony says that what is the difference between VM kernel adapter and switch? So if we go back to the diagram, um, and you can see the switches here. So I'll just go for another one. This is a too messed up one, and I'll just grab this here. And so suppose we have a virtual switch here. So first of all, what is the difference between virtual switch and the VM kernel adapter? Well, we did talk about that a lot actually. So first of all, virtual VM kernel adapter is a component of virtual switch. VSS, virtual switch, has then port group for virtual machines and connectivity of or networking for different features. It has VM kernel adapter. So if you VM kernel adapter is first of all a component of a virtual standard switch. Why does it have a network IP address as well? Definitely, that's a good question. So when you are introducing some critical service that is critical and sensitive service. So in that case, IP address and dedicated switch and dedicated TCP/IP stack is needed. So if you just put all the services, suppose this is a critical service and you put it on the same 200.2, 200.3 is the IP of 651, right? So it's all about bandwidth. It's all about the usages. What kind of traffic is hitting your network adapter that already has an IP address of 200.3, right? So why don't you give a critical sensitive service which is actually migration over the network while the machine is on? So why don't you give it a dedicated IP so you would not be interfering with the traffic that is coming from already used IP 200.3 there, right? So 200.3 is already being used, so that's why we went for 210. But why does it require an IP? That's just to provide non-disruptive traffic and non-disruptive bandwidth just for the purpose of vMotion. And that's why they recommend that go for separate network adapters, separate IP, separate TCP/IP stack for that, because it's very sensitive and critical service. So the more important the service is, the more networking components you add for that. So Anthony says so all the dedicated traffic is sent to all the dedicated traffic for vMotion is sent exactly to this IP. Exactly, that's the point. It's so critical and sensitive. Yes, it has to have an IP. That's the same for fault tolerance as well. That's the same for vSAN as well, or all the other services. So they just give more networking coverage to those critical sensitive services. Then there is, can I edit the, yes, you can edit. The Khalid says, so what if I need to connect to different network? Let's say I need to add some servers to DMZ. Servers to DMZ. So hypervisors to DMZ. DMZ is for if you want outside traffic to just not connect directly, come inside your internal network, and the outside traffic should stay outside. There are two firewalls here. One firewall that is protecting the LAN, and then there's a firewall here, and then there's another firewall, and then it is coming from internet traffic, right? So suppose you are offering some users services, and those services they should not be going inside your internal network. They should just connect here, get those services within the two firewalls or DMZ, and then just leave from outside there. Or they should go through the first firewall, and for added security they go to the second firewall if they have to connect inside the LAN. So normally you won't put these hypervisors in DMZ for that. So Citrix gateway would be there, and VPN gateway would be there. So those are the services that expecting traffic from outside will be in the DMZ, not the hypervisors itself. Okay, Paul says, how do we edit the network label? Network. So Paul, you can see here the vMotion, right? So you want to change that. So first of all, guys, vSwitch1, vSwitch0, you cannot change these labels. But if you want to change these, if they offer, so just click there, and there's a pencil sign here. If they offer here, then you can. If they don't, you can't. So TCP/IP stack, vMotion. If we go to network settings, you have IPv4 settings, IPv6 settings. Nope, that's it. So they don't offer that here, so you can't change it. But suppose you have a different one, it really doesn't matter. I mean, suppose you got here that same label that was there. Suppose you forgot to change this. It doesn't matter. It's okay. It's gonna work, right? So don't worry about. But if you want to change it, yeah, you have to delete it and just recreate one more time, the same thing with the correct label. Okay, guys. So hopefully we all got this far, and we have this two configurations here. I'm just gonna put that back. The prerequisites. Remove all other switches. We just created the two switches. We don't need to remove them. Make sure our VM has an operating system. So if your VM has an operating system, that's okay. If it doesn't have an operating system, that's also okay. And then let's create a new data store. Yes, we have actually 3 data stores on the ones. Let's move our, okay. So pretty much we're ready. We need to move one of our virtual machines. So we're gonna try 4 types of migrations now, right? Okay. Okay, so we're going to try 4 types of migration. What are those 4 types? We talked about that before. Well, there's a cold one, cold migration. So we're going to migrate a machine while it is powered off. Then we're going to power on the machine and suspend it, and then migrate. Then we're going to power on the machine and migrate. That's the one for which we had to create the VM kernel port, right? And then there's that storage vMotion. We're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to, then 4th one would be that we're going to move the machine, virtual machine, while it is powered on, and move its storage. Virtual machine storage means it's virtual disk, it's snapshot, it's VMX configuration file. So all the files of a virtual machine we're going to move in this one, instead of just moving the files once, although we did that before as well. We moved the files of the virtual machine from a local disk-based data store to a LAN-based data store. We did that already. So we're going to go for cold, suspended, vSphere, vMotion, and cross-host vSphere vMotion. So I'm going to tell you which one is which when we're doing that. So let's go for the cold migration first. So we're going to go there to the ESXi01, right? So here I'm going to choose your first time VM02 machine. I know there is no operating system inside. So whether an operating system is inside or not, the vMotion rules are the same, right? So I'm not starting this machine, your first time VM02, because it is a cold migration. The machine is powered off and it can migrate from one hypervisor to another. So let's right click on the virtual machine here on any one of your choice, and make sure it is powered off first. And once you right click on the virtual machine, you should be seeing this, migrate, right? So if you see that migrate here, let's click that. And well, some of you may remember that we've gone through this wizard before, but we chose the middle option here, that is change storage only, right? So we're going to go for change compute resource only, and we're going to keep it selected, because compute resource means you want to change the hypervisor ESXi1 to ESXi2. That's it, right? That's compute resource. So keep it selected and click next. Okay, Jubola says how to confirm if VM02 is powered off. So, okay, there is no green play button here, Jibola, first of all. Very small green play button is there. Second thing is go to summary. Select the virtual machine and click summary. Right? So it should say this. Okay. So let us go ahead. I'm gonna right click on VM02 and go to migrate, and then go to, well, we're gonna just keep that change compute resource only setting there and click next. So now what happens is that if you chose a machine that didn't have the ISO attached to its DVD, then you will see both hypervisors. If you see just one hypervisor, this means that the ISO Windows Server 2012-2016 was attached. Either you will not see the destination host, or you will see a big error here that, hey, remove from your DVD the mapping of the Windows 2012-2016 ISO. So but those do happen if you do that. So right now, if you see the destination host, I know that my machine is on E6i1, so I'm going to select the destination host as E6i2, right? And click next. So now here you can see that uh, the this port group, right? Port group is right now this, but on the destination it's saying that what would be the port group there. I don't think we have a destination port group. We never created this port group in E6i2 as well, right? So in destination we can select the only port group that is available, and that is the default port group VM-network. So I'm going to select that VM-network, and here, whichever port group it was connected to, it will go to the destination machine on this port group. So make sure you select that, right? Please, what was selected in computer resources? If any says computer resources, where is the computer resources? Oh yeah, if you select the E6i2, if your machine is on E6i1, select E6i2. If your machine is on E6i2, then select E6i1. Oh, Ajibula says one host. Ajibula, this happens, as I was just saying there, that the machine that you've selected has in its virtual DVD, it has the ISO attached to it. So, and my suggestion is cancel that machine, Ajibola, and then select another machine that is a new machine. We have 4 machines there, right? So don't go for VM01, go for VM02 or 3. But the troubleshooting for that is you need to remove the that host. Okay, now guys, let me just show you. So if you see that, go to right click the virtual machine here, your first name 02, and go to edit settings. If you see one host, this is because you have a mapping of ISO to the DVD, ISO operating system to the DVD. So if you go to the edit settings of that machine, suppose you want to stick to that machine. So there's a CD DVD. In my case, obviously it's not there because I selected a empty machine there. But you have to uncheck the connect, and you have to make sure that it's not on data store ISO, it is on client device. Now what actually happens when you do that, still that error comes. You refresh, still that error comes. You sign out and sign in, still that error comes. You close the browser, still that error comes, until you get to restart the whole vCenter. So some students saw that then it went away, and others, very few students saw that even after restarting vCenter, that error kept on coming. So this means that somehow the machine was still thinking that you did not remove the ISO from the client device. If it happens to you, yeah, it's kind of a stubborn one. So just uncheck that ISO from there and press OK, and then go ahead and try again. Ajibola, otherwise go for another machine which is empty machine and try to go for the vMotion options after that. Source network, Paul says source network has VM network, which is good. If you want to connect to that, it is okay, but all that matters here is what is the destination network port group name. And if we select the right destination network port group name, Paul, then we're good. So I'm going to migrate. But if you want to change the source port group to VM network, you can go ahead and do that, but it works both ways. Okay, so change compute resource only. I'm just gonna try again. Next, and then I'm gonna put the destination host here, E6i2 in my case, and then next. So yeah, the destination is what what really matters. So I'm just gonna go for VM network. Why? Because, and why I'm saying that it's gonna work, because it says here compatibility check succeeded. If you get any error warning, it comes here. So if it's green, you're good. You're good to go next, right? If it's green. Okay, guys, make sure that you selected the VM network here on the destination, because that's the only port group that is there in E6i2, and then click next. And well, that's it. And this is for the powered off machine, so that's not a big deal. So click finish, right? So it should migrate from E6i1 to E6i2. So let's click finito. Okay, so well, it is migrated. It was powered off. Next one is suspended migration. So the suspended migration is that you power on the machine, whether it is empty or have an operating system, doesn't matter. So I'm just gonna go for your first name VM02, which is on E6i2. So Paul says operation not supported. So Paul, which machine have you selected? VM01 or VM02? Not sure which options you have selected there. Hopefully you were following me, and hopefully everything else is configured. 02, you have 03, go for that. Try to do that, because we're mainly concentrating on vMotion happens or not. And operation not supported. Wow, some major option is not configured. This means, okay, try this with VM03 and try to go till the end and let me know. Okay, guys, so then otherwise I'll connect to you after we are done with the migrations. So are you guys here? Right click on VM02 and then power on. So once the machine is powered on, then we need to suspend it, right? So keep the view on summary for the virtual machine so you could see that, okay, in my case it is powered on, but I know that there's no operating system there. Youngren says looks same as move to option we did last week. Yeah, so no, move to is different, and if you select move to for this virtual machine and you select that other hypervisor, that move to changes to migration wizard, right? So only migration wizard can take us in. It's it looks like the same, but it's not the same. That's what I can say. Migration is different, move to is different, but it looks like the same. Okay, guys, so I'm gonna right click here and go to power, and you can see this suspended here, right? Go ahead and suspend. Okay, so Paul says the operation is not supported on the object. Migrating VM to different network without changing its host. Oh, you didn't change the host. So Paul, is your virtual machine on E6i1? You have to make sure that which host your machine is on and select the other host. So your machine is on E6i1. When you start the wizard, you have to select E6i2, the destination host. Maybe you're selecting the same. You kept on selecting the same E6i host. Where the machine is, how can I migrate from E6i1 to E6i1? So select the E6i2. Hopefully that's the problem. So try to migrate, start migration again. When you see the two hosts, select E6i2 as the destination. Let me know. Okay, guys, so suspend the machine. Go ahead and suspend the machine here. It's on E6i2 now after cold migration. Cold migration is no big deal. Now done. Okay, that's good. So Paul, did now done means your machine has migrated to E6i2, or are you on the wizard? Oh, you've migrated to E6i2. Okay. So then power on the machine. All right, good, great. So right click and power on the machine, Paul. Right click here and yeah, power on the machine. Once the machine is powered on, just go ahead and suspend it. So once the machine is powered on, suspend it. So right click on the machine, then power, and then suspend. Okay, so and that machine is, so we just need to do the migration again. The only thing in documentation is that when you're migrating a suspended machine, the processors of the two hypervisors, the source and destination, must be belonging to the same family. That's the only thing you need to worry about in a production environment. Here we know that the processors are same for both hypervisors, right? So it looks like it's like a cold migration as well, but the processors have to be the same, otherwise it's not going to work in production environment. So I'm just going to right click here after suspending it, and you can see the two yellow equal signs. If that's what you see, then we can go for migrate. Go for migrate, right? So select the migrate and then go for change compute resource only. That's the same exact thing that we did before, same exact thing we're doing again. And this time the destination is E6i1 because our machine is on E6i2. So it's going to go to E6i1 now, the other hypervisor. So next, and yes, so well, it is already selected E6i1. I know that my machine is on E6i2, so my destination would be E6i1. And click next. And yes, the destination port group is also VM network. It has two port groups because we created one extra, right? So yes, we can either drop it to the second port group or we can drop it to the first port group. It's up to us. I'll keep it the same named port group, although you can drop it to the second port group as well, or third or fourth, suppose we had that many. Also, it says that since the operation is being conducted across data centers, yes, it is being conducted not only across the hosts, but it is being conducted across the data centers, NYDC and TOR-DC, right? So it's saying that, hey, just make sure that your networks across the data centers are same. They may not be the same. They're saying, so we know that they're the same, they're configured correctly, so we can ignore this warning here, right? So click next. That's it, ready to complete. Go ahead and finish. So go ahead and finish. Go ahead and finish. Go ahead and finish. And well, it's back here. So suspended and cold migration seems like the same one because the only difference is suspended requires that you should have the same processors there. Cold migration, even if different processors, it simply migrates. It's okay. Now the third one, that's the one for which we created the VM kernel adapter, and that is, let's right click and just simply power on that machine. This time we're not going to suspend it, we're just going to keep it powered on. Now if in production environment, obviously it will have an operating system. Ours does not have an operating system, but the vMotion configuration is the same with or without an operating system, right? So now my machine is powered on and it has a small green play button here, and in the summary view I can see that it is saying powered on. What it says is VMware tools is not installed. Obviously we don't have an operating system, so obviously in production environment you must have a VMware tools installed in every virtual machine with an operating system. Obviously you will have all the virtual machines with operating system. So my machine is powered on now, and I need to migrate this machine. So guys, before we migrate, just one question to you is that in what scenario you would want to migrate a powered on machine from one hypervisor to another? Anyone can tell me what scenario is there that you will do this? Powered on machine during peak hours, you will migrate. When do you do that? Oh, okay. Khalid says email servers. Himan says, what's the question? The question is that in what scenario that you would migrate a powered on virtual machine while end users are using it. End users are working on it, and all of a sudden you want to migrate that machine from during peak hours from one hypervisor to another. What scenario, what reason would you do that for? Okay, if any says maybe when you notice HDD crash. Oh, okay, so HDD crash. Arti says during non-peak hours, that was the best thing, but powered on virtual machine, vMotion is used during emergencies, right? So it would be peak hours, and you have no choice. When do you have no choice? In what situation you have no choice but to migrate? Okay, then Khalid says email server and you need to update the physical servers. Update the physical servers? Okay, okay. Ruben says disaster recovery. Okay. Long boot up time. Anthony says, okay. Ruben says disaster recovery. Oh, okay. And then Himan says vMotion doesn't impact user disconnect session. Yes. So guys, the main thing to understand here is when do you use vMotion? What scenario? So there's that concept out there as well. I'm teaching this same course in NetWest College. At NetWest College, I was saying I'm teaching in Humber College. Here I'm saying NetWest College, right? Obviously. So there also I asked that, and they said that okay, if the hard disk crash or if the machine crashes, so what happens is make sure that we understand that you are going to vMotion. vMotion works, first of all, vMotion only works as long as the host is up and running, right? So vMotion is not for when the disaster has struck, right? When the disaster has struck, not then vMotion cannot work actually, right? So then when does vMotion works? vMotion works when we have degradation of performance, and users are connected and they're saying we are opening files, closing files, and those files are actually very slowly opening and very slowly closing. So that is unacceptable. And then you decide, there are so many other virtual machines on this hypervisor, and they're all sharing the RAM, and that's why performance has degraded. So then you see, HXI2 has very less virtual machines and a lot of RAM and processing is available, and you decide that okay, I'm gonna do a vMotion. vMotion means machine is powered on. So you only do that when there's a degradation of performance. If the host went down, if the host crashed, then vMotion will also not work. So it's not used for disaster recovery. It is used for degradation of performance. Disaster recovery, you have two other features. What are for those? Disaster recovery / crashes of any type, hard disk crash or PC power crash or whatever crash, right? So DR and crashes, there is fault tolerance, FT, and there is HA. These two features are there. High availability, HA, and FT, fault tolerance. These are the next topics as well. These you use for crashes and actual disasters, disaster recovery, but you use vMotion for degradation of performance, and DRS automatically does that for you, or you can do it yourself just like we are about to do now. So remember always, vMotion has nothing to do with crash or disaster. It has everything to do with degradation. It has to have a host up and running for vMotion to occur. If the host has crashed, this machine can't do anything, right? Paul says, what do you mean by degradation of performance? So performance is degraded, which means that you have you don't have enough RAM, and RAM is not enough, and you have like 20 virtual machines here, suppose, and it's peak hours. There are many file servers here inside the virtual machines. So end users are connected to all those 20 machines, and there is not enough RAM. When you run out of RAM and there is not enough CPU now, it's being divided among all the machines. So the performance gets slow. How does performance get slow? So suppose there's a critical machine and the users are saying that when they connect and they're opening and closing files, that opening and closing files is too slow, or it's not opening at all or not closing at all. So it's just too slow and unacceptably slow now. When it is unacceptably slow, it is called degradation of performance, right? Or spike utilization, exactly, right? Okay, so here let's go ahead and let's try to come back here. So we now understand that if we had crashed the host ourselves just to test, we can't do vMotion because there is nothing there to vMotion. So it will only be there if the host is up and running. So now let's so this machine is powered on, and suppose the performance has degraded, the CPU and RAM is low now, and you want to migrate, you decided to migrate during live environment and people are connected. So you go ahead and try to click the migrate on that machine, which is powered on right now. And yes, it's the same option again, change compute resource only. You would not think of going for change storage only. Obviously storage would be 200 GB, 300 GB, even 50 GB storage would take a lot of time and it will slow down even further. So Paul says, so if there is a degradation, how does vMotion come into action? So vMotion is going to use very less resources to move, right? So what happens is the virtual machine is actually sitting on or working on RAM, right? And the memory material, memory content, as they say, virtual machines hard disk is here, right? Hard disk is on the data store. So hard disk never moves, it's just sitting there. Only virtual machine and its memory contents, which is a very small size, it moves. So it moves really fast and lands on the RAM of another hypervisor because it's powered on. It has to land on a RAM working with it. So it's just memory contents. What are memory contents? Users have opened the files or closed the files. Some applications are open. So whatever information about the user connectivity, application status, configurations is there, that is a very small data that can move really fast. But the big data is there in the hard disk, and the hard disk never moves. So when the virtual machine finally moves, so virtual machines still have connectivity to that hard disk from the other hypervisor. Why? Because the LAN is connected from this hypervisor as well as this hypervisor. So the memory content is very small. So even with degraded performance, it moves really fast because it's very small data that is moving from the RAM of one hypervisor to the RAM of the other hypervisor. So it's really small data. Migrating memory content from one hard disk to another, or one RAM to another, Paul. It would be RAM of one hypervisor to the RAM of other hypervisor because it's working on the RAM right now. Yes, from one hypervisor to another, exactly. You got it. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead, guys, and that's pretty good questions coming, and we all get to know then. Different aspects of that. So keep them coming, and all the questions are welcome. Okay, so here I'm just gonna right click here, your first name VM02, and I'll migrate, and then yeah, we know the drill now. So it's on E6i1 right now. Currently I'm gonna move it to E6i2. So change compute resource only and click next. I'll try, obviously I'll go for E6i2, which is the destination or the other host, right? Oh, okay. So right click on Paul, right click on VM02 and click migrate. You know what we did before, and then we are here. So just select the E6i2. So we're doing the exact same thing third time now. So hopefully you're there, and go to E6i2 now because your machine is on E6i1, and click next. Yes, the port groups are same, but the only difference is that this time the machine is powered on. It's not suspended, it's not closed. And I see a warning here, but if I go to show details, this is that same warning that we saw before, that is saying that, hey, you're doing migration across data centers. It is possible that on the other data center the network is different. So we say, yeah, we know that, it's okay, so ignore this. So it's going to land on the same named port group on the destination host. The only difference is between cold, suspended, and live is this last window here. That schedule vMotion with high priority recommended or schedule regular vMotion. So CPU and RAM is given more to this vMotion, so it could move away fast, right? So yes, we're gonna stick to high priority. And next, so it's now ready, and so it's going to, its disk is still on data store 0, 1, 0. So it's going to stay there because the disk will not move. It's only the virtual machine memory contents will move, right? So let's click finish. Well, it moved. That's good. So it was powered on, and then it moved there. So that's if we go back to the slide there, so that's our cold migration done, suspend migration done, and then there is vSphere vMotion done, right? Storage vMotion is that you just move the files of the virtual machine from one data store to another data store, but we can do this storage vMotion and vMotion both at the same time as well, right? So once your machine has been moved from E6i 1 to E6i 2 now, when we come back here, we're going to actually do two things at the same time. What are those two things that we're going to do at the same time? If I explain that in the diagram, so it is that not only that the virtual machine from E6i 2 will move to E6i 1, but also virtual machine's virtual disk will move from DS0 to whichever excuse me. So whichever data store you want to move, it's gonna move to that. So we're gonna do two moves in one session. So virtual machine moves from E6i 2 to E6i 1, and it's VMDK, it's virtual disk, it's VMX, which is its configuration file, VMST, which is its snapshot file. So all those virtual machine files will also change the data stored in the same migration session now. So that will be storage vMotion plus the actual virtual machine vMotion. Both will be occurring at the same time now, right? So let's do that too. We're gonna go back here. Now we need to migrate or vMotion this machine back while it is powered on. We're gonna keep it powered on now, and let's start the visit again, but this time we're gonna go for the third one, which actually moves its file. Oh, before that, guys, sorry, come back here. Which data store this machine's virtual disk is on, right? The storage of this machine is on which data store, and how would I know that? So if I select that machine and go to the right side here, this one, data stores, right? So I know that, okay, in my case, the virtual machines, all files are inside data store 0. I want to change that too. So all of them says DS0, exactly. So I want to change that to, while the virtual machine will change the hypervisors, its storage, its virtual disk and all files will change the data store as well this time. So keep it on this view, data stores, because you will see that machine will be here, but you want to see that the data store changed as well or not. So let's right click on this VM02 now. Now if you're doing this one, obviously you have to do it in off-peak hours. You cannot perform this one during peak hours. Why? You're now moving the virtual disk of our virtual machine. Our virtual machine is, it doesn't have an operating system, so it's very light. But the production environment virtual machines will be maybe 50 GB, 90 GB, 100 GB, 200 GB. So when that virtual disk starts moving, it's gonna take hours, right? So do not try this in production environment during peak hours. Okay, during off-peak hours, yes, in the evenings or weekends, then do this third one. So right click again and go for migrate. Right click again and go for migrate. And let's go for the third one. So second one is just moving the storage, which we did already in one of the previous classes. So you can go for, now it's asking that, okay, I'm going to move your machine from one hypervisor to another, but also I'm going to move your machine's files from one data store to another. So which task you want to do first, which task you want to do second. So we're going to say that, okay, well, you can choose the second one first, or first one is okay, so it's up to you. But we can just choose that, okay, first move the virtual machines hypervisors, change their virtual machines hypervisors, then change the data store as well later, right? So in production environment, it will take hours because of the virtual disk size. Here, it's not gonna take much time. It's an empty machine, right? So let's click next with third option selected. And then it is asking that compute resource. Obviously our machine is in NYDC E6i2, so our destination should be E6i1. And click next. Now it's asking that, hey, you also opted for data store change, so can you tell me the destination data store? So it could be DS1, DS2, it's up to you. So I'm just going to go for DS2 for no particular reason. So once DS2 is selected, click next. And then the network is, it's always asking destination port group. Yes, it's going to be this port group. We're good. And click next. Well, that's the usual one, high priority. Yes, like we want it done with high priority. So two things in one session. Let's click next. And yes, destination is LON 2, DS2. Okay, and destination here is hypervisor E6i1. Finish. So machine first should move to E6i1, and then the data store should change to DS2. All right. So the hosts changed successfully, and yes, the data store also changed successfully. Yay! Oh, okay, I forgot to stop. Yay! Okay. So that was good. That was cool, right? Okay, so that is the whole vMotion, and we're going to use that vMotion in the advanced feature called DRS, Distributed Resource Scheduler, right? So, guys, that's your third screenshot now. That okay, what's the name of that? The name is cross-host vSphere vMotion worked. So take a screenshot of this one and say cross-host vSphere vMotion worked. So I'm just going to take a screenshot now where it shows the data store as well as cross-host vSphere vMotion works. So copy that. I'll put it on WhatsApp here. So cross-host vSphere vMotion works. So cross-host vSphere vMotion works. All right. Okay, that's your third screenshot here, and okay, so here, once we have done that, let's go for the next configuration. Woohoo! Yay! Yay! So, vMotion installation. Okay, what does that mean? Khaled says, I was waiting for vMotion installation. Okay, that was the whole vMotion installation, guys. If you want to refer it to that, so yes, that's it. That's what we did. okay, it's a software. Oh, okay. Now we are clear that it's just a built-in feature into vCenter, so it's not a separate software. Me, Shabadan says me. Me too. Oh, okay. So now our concept has cleared. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, guys, let's go ahead. Okay, now what we need to do is that we're going to create the cluster that's going to introduce a lot of features, right? Like lot. So cluster, we're going to create a cluster which is grouping of hosts, hypervisor hosts. So we're going to cluster the hosts. And second thing is that we're going to, so cluster does what? It offers all the disaster recovery, redundancy, and high availability features. Cluster maintains the the collective maintains and keeps the inventory and keeps the inventory of the collective hardware of all hypervisor hosts in the cluster. So suppose you have 8 hypervisor hosts, so and each has 1 terabyte RAM. Wow, that's huge and expensive. So you have like 1 terabyte RAM, and you have 16 core processor. So if it's 8 hypervisors, so it's going to be 8 terabyte. Cluster will see that it has available 8 terabyte of RAM and 16 core, so 16 times 8. Any PhD here in maths? 16 times 8 is what? Before I do calc, if you can say that, so you will get all. So 16 times 8. So I'm just going to go for 16 times 8. Which is my. Okay, so hey, that's a lot. I mean, like everyone knew that. So we have multiple PhD in maths here, so that's very good. Thank you. So it's 128 core cluster processors there and 8 terabyte RAM. So cluster collectively keeps an inventory of how much of CPU, how much of RAM, how much of hard disk space, how much of bandwidth is there among all the collection of hosts, right? So that's why then all the advanced features, disaster features. So features it offers cluster offers VMware cluster offers features like HA high availability and DRS seriously distributed resource scheduler, fault tolerance FT, vSAN, and EVC, etc. So we're going to go through all these features now, and we're going to understand that what are they and how do they work. But before that, we have to create a cluster. So cluster is created inside our data center. So this means that if your both hypervisors have to be inside the cluster, then the second hypervisor, suppose we are creating a cluster in Toronto DC, right? So the other hypervisor has to be moved from NYDC to DC, the Toronto data center, and then the other hypervisor can move into the cluster, right? So cluster is created inside a data center, under a data center, right? So it cannot be across a data center. Yeah, so Khalid says all this in 30 minutes. Man, 30 minutes people can go to moon. This is just HA, DRS, FT, vSAN, EVC, Affinity, and backup, and update, VUM, and vVol, and just kidding. Okay, so let's go ahead, guys. No, it's not gonna be all 30. So it's 27 now 6. So no, it's not gonna be all. So whatever we can do till half an hour. So cluster is created inside a data center. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create a cluster, and then we're going to add the two hypervisors under the cluster inside TorDC. So let's do that. Let's do what? I'm going to show you now. So we're going to create a, let's go back to our vCenter. So here you can see that if you click the TorDC here, and you right click on the TorDC, then you can see new cluster, right? So it can be created only under our data center, right? So let's create a cluster, new cluster, yay, because we need to understand all the advanced features for which you will be interviewed, and that's for these features you get all the tickets. So TorDC here, and then there is new cluster. So we're going to go for Tor cluster, right? So it's Tor cluster. So it's going to be Tor cluster, and you can see already DRS, vSphere HA, EVC, vSAN. These are all the features that's going to come our way, and very, very interesting features. So that's the heart of the VMware vSphere vCenter, right? Because of these features. So let's press OK. Without clicking any of those, without enabling EVC, without checking anything, let's press O and K. Oh, Madhuri says please repeat. Okay, Madhuri, right click on TorDC and click new cluster. Right click on TorDC and click new cluster.
Okay, got it.
No, right click on TorDC and click, oh, just click, okay. So, and then press TorDC, a Tor cluster. So Tor cluster. Okay, cool. So Tor cluster, guys, if you have written that, do not check anything, do not enable this EVC, and press OK. Tor cluster and press OK, that's it. Now once we create a Tor cluster, so you're going to see that cluster will maintain all the information of the hypervisors. So hypervisors have to be moved inside the cluster. Remember that we are moving virtual machines inside the resource pool here and vApp. This is the same way we're going to move the whole hypervisor inside the Tor cluster. So the first way is you can drag and drop the hypervisor on top of Tor cluster, or the proper way is right click, you know, the move to, right? So right click on E6I01 and go down to move to, right? Once you click move to here, so you're going to put TorDC, and this time Tor cluster, right? Hopefully everyone's there. So TorDC and okay. So you just go ahead and press OK. You're gonna do the same thing for ESXi2, but across the data centers. So I'm gonna press OK here, and the ESXi1 should be inside Tor cluster. Okay, so so I'm just gonna right click on ESXi2 here and go down. This host has nested resource pools. vSphere DRS is not enabled for cluster. Tor cluster. Moving a host to this cluster will collapse all existing resource pools for the host. So it says, cluster says that, hey, you don't have to really depend on the resource pools now, because we have the granddad of resource pool, and that is DRS. So yeah, if you all got the same message here or warning here, it's a warning. So just press yes and it's okay. Move this host to the cluster. Just press yes to that. It just says that, hey, resource pool will not work if you move the host into a cluster. We say, okay, yeah, because we have a better thing now, which is DRS. I'm going to see that how it is better. So I'm going to press yes here, and it is moved. Now, yeah.
Sorry, disturb, sir, but I'm not getting that option.
Oh, but it moved. No.
Yeah, I mean, it was that option was just not there. I
And
was
it
not
moved
able to see it.
successfully, right?
No. I just
Oh yeah. So when you right click at E6I01 and you click move to, after that you click the Tor cluster, right? And then you press OK. So if
I select.
I can do that again. Yeah. So see this E6I2, right click. The same thing I did with E6I1. I'm doing on E6I2 now, and you can see that. And click move to. And once you click move to, you have to select Tor DC, expand that, and Tor cluster. This one, right? Hopefully you've done that. And press OK. Yes, resource pool is deleted. It's gone because DRS will take over.
Okay, I'm not getting this OK option. I'll just find it.
Oh, you don't get OK option? Oh, you can actually drag down, scroll down on the right side. I think it's the screen is smaller, so that's why you're not seeing that. So, or press enter, hopefully. Okay, so yeah,
Okay.
you got it, right? Okay, cool. Now, guys, my
No, sir, nothing is working. Not I can see the scroll button and not the enter is working.
now the enter is not working or working.
Enter is also not working, and the scroll option is also not working.
You can make that full screen option, and then the scroll bars will change for you. So put the full screen option there on the top, and then try to see if everything shows up. Smaller screen, it does not show up. Sandeep says operation not supported.
No.
Okay, so it's simple NO. In fact, I also got an error here. The operation is not supported on the object. Are you kidding me? So I'm gonna right click here, E6I2 again. I'm gonna click move to, and let's check it out. So Tor DC and Tor cluster, because we have to just know the reason for that. So I'm just gonna, and it obviously it's gonna pop up here, more tasks. I'm just gonna go for more tasks here on the error, just to know that what went in. Oh, so Shahabuddin's machine moved. Ajibullah, we are moving the E6I to Tor cluster. Oh, yeah, Ajibullah, we are moving the ESXi to Tor cluster. So I'm just checking that why there's an error here for E6I2. It's not supposed to have that. I'll go to events here. There's the events on the left side. This one. Ready? And this event should give some kind of information. Move host into cluster. There are no related events. Are you kidding me? Move host to. So the one thing remaining is that we can just refresh the host or restart E6I2, then it might move. So if I go to another event, it also does not give me any explanation. It just says, so if it's not giving any explanation, no particular reason, so restart would be one magical step that we can take. Why is it not telling me anything? Okay, I'll double click that. Nothing, right? Okay, Paul says mine moved successfully, and Feroz says you moving from E6I from NYDC to Tor. Yes, it normally works fine. Like, yes, we can move E6I2, right click, and either we can put it on maintenance mode and then move. I'll try that now as well, but first of all, I'll just move it one more time. So guys, you all did the move to only, right? Just what I did. And then target is Tor DC. The NYDC host is moving across the data center to Tor DC. So Tor cluster here normally just moves fine, but yes, it's not. So okay, now I need to check the summary here. What's wrong with this one? And so the ESXi2 under NYDC is not moving to the Tor cluster under Tor DC, right? Arthi says moved. Okay, so same steps, it's working for some, and same steps, it's kind of not working for few. So guys, I'm just gonna go for that. I'm gonna restart ESXi2 now, right? And CMR, right? So I'm just gonna restart ESXi2, only ESXi2, because that's the one not working. So I'm just gonna restart that. Highest bidder. Yeah. Okay, now Madhuri sees that. Yes, Madhuri says press yes to that message. Now my ESXi2 is restarting. Okay, it's restarting. Oh man, come on, restart already. Then I'm gonna go for. Okay, so I'm gonna just make sure that it is detected now. So I'm gonna refresh within the vCenter, because I know it's restarted on the other side. It just need to detect that it is. I'm gonna refresh there. Oh, okay. So Madhuri, you were able to move both hypervisors. That's very good. So if you have moved, guys, the two hypervisors, those who have moved the two hypervisors, you can expand the Tor cluster, and you can take a screenshot of the two hypervisors, right? Expand the cluster and take the screenshot of the two hypervisors. So two hypervisors moved to cluster. That's the screenshot name. Two hypervisors moved to the cluster. That's the screenshot name. Take a screenshot of the two hypervisors under Tor cluster. Okay, it's refreshed now. I'm just going to try to move that again. Fingers crossed, obviously. Okay, so I think some of us are stuck, and what I can try to do, one more thing, is that I'll check out the ESXi2 and check the F2 here, and same error, can't move here too, same error. So Sandeep, Olufemi, Jagwant, Ajibola, anyway, we can always revert to a previous stage that worked fine, like snapshot. Oh, well, for once you're running inside, Paul, once you're running inside the VMware workstation. Yes, if we had taken a screenshot, which we did not. If we had taken a screenshot, then yes, it would have worked. So guys, I'm just guessing it may be lockdown mode, but I don't think it's a lockdown mode. I'm just testing it, and then you can try that. I'm going to show you again, but let me just first test that. I disabled the lockdown mode, which was a security feature, but I don't think this is because of this it's not moving too. So for many of you it moved, and for many it did not, so that's not good. Okay, the error still comes, so it's not the lockdown mode, and I need to actually enable that back. It's not that. Okay, it's enabled. So and what we can do, and that would be really, that's without taking snapshots. Yes, exactly. So if you want to take a snapshot, Paul, you can just whichever configuration is there, if you want to keep on taking, so that's you can just go to snapshot here for the VMware workstation and then take snapshot, and later if something's messed up, then you can revert to the snapshot as well, right? So but we did not take any, so but if you want to keep on taking, you can start from today. Okay guys, so it's not moving, and the troubleshooting number 2 would be then we can just remove this A6i2 from the NYDC. So how about we can move to a Tor DC instead of Tor cluster? Let's move it directly to our Tor DC first. We're directly moving it to Tor cluster, right? How about we move it to Tor DC first, and then we can try to move. So does it move to Tor DC? I just dragged it, and yes. So try to move it to Tor DC first, right? And not directly to Tor cluster. Worked? Okay, Olufemi says worked. So I just dragged it to Tor DC instead of Tor cluster, and it worked fine. It moved to Tor DC at least. Now from there, I'll try to move it inside the cluster, right? Okay, Ajibula says worked. Sandeep says worked. Okay, cool. There we go. So I'll try to, okay, Feroz says worked. There you go. So guys, let's keep going. Now in the cluster, exactly. Drag and on top of the cluster, and it's inside the cluster. Woohoo! Yay! Okay, so yeah, it's in the cluster. Now you take the screenshot. So first move to Tor DC, then move to cluster, and it works fine. All right. Thank you. Welcome. So guys, take that screenshot, and then we go for the next topic. And that next topic is how to shut down the machine and upload. So this is a screenshot here where there's a Tor cluster and 2 hypervisors, and the name of the final screenshot is name of the screenshot is so I'm just putting on WhatsApp, and that is yep, the two hosts moved to cluster, right? 2 hosts moved to cluster. So I've just put that screenshot in WhatsApp. So now there are 3 screenshots here. So A6i1 and 2 under Tor cluster, yes. Okay, we can just, Paul, you want to give that? It's also okay. 2 plus, so that's the 3rd screenshot here. Copy image, and I will put it here. Oh, it did not copy the actual name. So guys, I'll just create that upload, and so that would be screenshot 3. 2 hosts move to cluster, right? Alright guys, so and so I'll just go for BB Humber, and go for Humber Central Service, Blackboard, and then we go for sign in. And then we're gonna go for this and course material, and we're gonna go way down to this was 9, right? So I'll copy this and it's 10 now. And this is 27. Alright, so inside week 10 I'll create an assignment now. So please upload week 10 lab. Okay guys, so go to week 10, upload the files, right? Go to week 10, upload the files, and excuse me, learning materials. So guys, do you see in the blackboard this one, learning materials? So all the slides are actually there. Learning material on the left side, all the slides are here. Learning material on the left side, all the slides are there. So I'll just create a... Yes guys, suspend the machines. Yes, suspend the machines. Yes, suspend the machines. And bye bye. See you next. And good luck with Thursday's quiz. And see you next Monday. Yay. Okay, so Jibula says, bye-bye. So Jibula says, so in production environment, the A6i2 installed on bare metal server in New York can be moved to a bare metal server. Exactly. Yes, Ajibula, that's exactly what we're going to do. Okay. All slides in Blackboard. Alright, thank you, bye-bye. Thank you, bye. Alright, so bye-bye guys, thank you, good night, bye-bye. Alright. Time is 8 to 9, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m., 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Thursday, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Bye, thank you, bye-bye, thank you. Thursday, 8 to 9, bye-bye. Alright, good night, thank you. Alright, see you, bye-bye, thank you. And closing the video.